OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Oh yeah, we're promising you a full 2 hours of nothing but sports fixtures, digestion, analysis and reaction, because World Rugby has a big plan, and the Talton Cup is stratospherically bursting into our orbits like a shooting star, like a diamond, like Lady Godiva. Owen, how are you?
I cannot wait for the Talton Cup.
Okay.
He's buzzing.
Colin Boog also here. Colin?
Hi lads. Owen was buzzing this morning in the office.
Colin's beloved Cork were nearly in the Talton Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been good.
But for one match.
That would have been good. Well, I would like to have seen that.
Yeah, that
would have brought a bit of pizzazz to proceedings, wouldn't they?
Brought the glamour. A Cork Cavan Talton Cup final would have been good.
I mean, and that's how it would have ended up, right?
Yeah, exactly. North versus South. The Warriors from the south of the land against the Warriors from the north of the land. This is how the Talton Cup is going to form.
I honestly thought that we believed in an integrated 32 county island of Ireland. That's what I thought.
It's in the rule book, actually.
That's what I thought. But no, it's north and south. We've partitioned the country in the Talton Cup. Is that correct? Am I reading this correct?
This is true. This is something that came to news and to light after Ryan McCluskey, formerly of Fermanagh, tweeted out that this was in the GAA handbook. Looked like official documentation that he was actually tweeting out. So yeah, I think maybe we could have all just done a bit of research ourselves when this thing came out, but it took somebody to actually come out and tweet a situation where there will be geographical elements to this knockout competition.
I guess bus hire is so expensive these days, fuel costs have gone up, that it's obviously the right thing to do.
Unless there is actually a bigger plan here where they're thinking to themselves, let's do Friday night lights for the Talton Cup, therefore we have to have local derbies, and therefore we have to have a northern section and a southern section. That's the imagination that's at play here, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. I mean, can you still not travel? Maybe you can't travel now. Maybe okay. I mean, how come the under-20s are forced to play midweek?
Because they don't have real jobs.
Is that it?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean,
a lot of them are still doing their leaving cert. They would have done TY, repeated again.
Okay, and then done 7 years of college.
Footballers,
exactly, yeah. Because you've got to get that Sigerson on, or somehow you got to get that Sigerson on your CV. Otherwise, Tommy Rooney will never mention you in the football pod.
And you'll never be a future football pod analyst, most importantly.
Exactly. Right, look, we'll talk about that in a bit more detail later on. And World Rugby are planning on blowing up the calendar a bit, but not really, for their summer tours. It's not quite the massive reorganisation that we thought was going to happen at the start of COVID that might actually have really catapulted the sport forward, but it's a variation of that. It's basically a copy of the Football Nations Cup, except it's a global competition with 2 divisions instead of the 4 divisions that Europe has. Overnight, the big news is that Erling Haaland has passed his medical. Or is doing his medical, or like we're at the medical stage of this now, where the breathless reporting on every aspect of this transfer that has gone on since it emerged that he had a buyout clause, which effectively sealed the deal that he was going to be transferred this summer, and it was really down to Man City, and it looked like Man City and Real Madrid, and then for whatever reason Real Madrid fell off the table. So it's been a one-horse race essentially. Is this the end of football, Colin? That's what I'm asking you.
Well, if Liverpool couldn't win the Premier League this year without Manchester City having an established number 9, what does it do to the league next year if Erling Haaland completes this move? It's like cheat mode in Football Manager. They're just going to be...
Are we all forgetting that Liverpool were flaky as F for about 5 weeks, and they just dropped points willy-nilly from winning positions against Brighton, for example? Did we just blah 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 that whole part of the season where Liverpool weren't very good for a period of time?
I think it's actually against the bigger teams they haven't been great. They drew twice with Chelsea, Manchester City, Spurs. It's just converting those draws into wins that have let them down.
When they were falling 12 points behind, when they were giving Man City the 12-point head start or 11-point head start or whatever it wasn't the big teams who were stopping them doing that. It was their own ineptitude that, like, the end of the season, and they could well win 3 competitions, which would be absolutely sensational for them. And they are an excellent team. Stephen Gerrard has said they're the best Liverpool team of all time. Which, I'm not really sure about that just yet. But there was a period of the season where it was actually Liverpool's fault that they were out of the title race. It was nothing to do with Man City's greatness. Man City were consistently good, but no.
But so what your point is that Liverpool are going to get up a notch next season?
Well, they should definitely be able to challenge Manchester City next season. I'm not shooing Man City in because they signed Haaland. Like, how many more points will Man City have next season because they've signed Haaland?
Probably about 5. So because they're going to finish up with 95 points this season. They'll probably get to 100 again next season with Haaland in the team. 2019-20 Premier League season was 99, wasn't it? Liverpool won the league with. So you're hoping for Liverpool to get back to the level with which they won the league post-COVID, which they possibly can do. You could make an argument that there have been certain moments in this season that they've hit a level that is on a par with that, if not above it. It hasn't been all season, obviously, especially not in the Premier League. But they've lost more games this season, for example, than they did in the entirety of that season when they won the league. It's the draws that have killed them. They've had 8 draws in the Premier League this season. So there's definitely an argument to be made that Liverpool can get to a higher level, especially given the work that they've done over the last year with the addition of Diaz and Konate, for example. Maybe they'll sign again this summer. Maybe they'll lose a few players this summer. But the one thing we do know for sure is that Manchester City are going to be stronger.
What if Sadio Mane goes to Bayern Munich, as is reported the last 24 hours?
So
slightly weaker. But the thing with Man City is that outside of Fernandinho, unless I'm forgetting someone now, that they're not obviously going to be weakened this summer with anybody leaving. So even if Haaland signs and it's not the raging success that everyone predicts, they're still going to be pretty much where they are now.
Yeah, okay.
That's the base level.
Sterling is being linked with Arsenal yesterday. But
he's not a vital member of the team.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
And
Bernardo Silva is constantly being linked away as well.
Yeah.
Barcelona linked with him consistently.
And they're talking about potentially selling Mahrez. I don't think they will. I mean, they've tended to let players run their contracts down because they're so rich. It doesn't really matter. And maybe it helps their accountancy if the value of what you have on your books collapses, because then you can write that off. And that's another way of getting around your financial fair play. Look, we're all the signs are that Erling Haaland will be a success at Manchester City. But what does a success look like when a player has this reputation? Does he have to be European Footballer of the Year within the next 3 years for this deal to have been, for it to have fulfilled its potential?
Yeah, I think so, because he's kind of like a cartoon character of brilliance, Haaland. 85 goals in 88 games for Borussia Dortmund. At Salzburg, he was brilliant in his one season. I think didn't he play at Anfield in the Champions League for them? It was excellent. And I think because of the reputation that he has, that he just obliterates defences like a teenage Wayne Rooney did, that he has to win these cataclysmic individual awards and set the team that he plays for to new heights just because of the reputation he has. But he could actually be doing very well without winning any of those awards, and anything other than absolute brilliance is probably going to be seen as not a failure, but maybe an underwhelming signing. And that's just because he's a victim of his own early success.
I think it has to be, I think the numerical kind of element of this has to match up to what they're paying for him and what he's expected to be. Like, he's got to be a Lewandowski style freak when it comes to the statistics. Now, Lewandowski,
40.
We're talking 40, or at least go game for game with your goal tally, and that includes Premier League goals. Like you're going to score 38 Premier League goals in a season. That would be absolutely extraordinary were he to do that. But Lewandowski came close to doing something like that. 48 goals in 40 appearances in 2020-21. That's in all competitions, admittedly, and then 49 in 2021-22. So, 55 3 years before that was the one, wasn't it, where he got over 50 goals. So that's the level I think that Haaland needs to get to kind of not justify the price tag, because the price tag isn't that high, but to justify the hype and to, I guess, realise his potential that it looks like he's got.
Well, they've also blown up their wage structure, which is going to be interesting to see what the dynamic of that is in that changing room. If they win the Champions League next season, none of this matters, right? But again, to go back to it, so let's quantify success. They have to win the Champions League, right? That's the whole point of signing the best young player in the world. Maybe Mbappe's better than him. I don't know. It'll be interesting over the next couple of years. Do we automatically assume that he hasn't peaked? That he's going to get better and better? That
Yes, we are making that assumption.
That he's not Michael Owen, that he's not Robbie Fowler, that the early stages of his career weren't the best?
Yeah, there's obviously no guarantee that that's not going to be the case, but everybody is making that assumption, and I think it's just impossible to say that it's definitely going to be the case. Now, in fairness, you'd like to hope that he's not going to be as unlucky with some of those young players when it comes to injury.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I guess my point is that we assume that one player missing piece of jigsaw equals all-conquering slathering of
massive
greatness.
Net gain.
Yeah, but I'm not always sure that is the case.
No, neither am I. I think individually for Haaland, I think
do they change their style of play? Do they become more predictable in that you put two defenders on Haaland, you clog up that area, and where previously you didn't know where the threat was going to come from because it could have been Mahrez, it could have been Foden, it could have been Silva, it could have been anybody. Now it's like, well, we just mark him. They're all passing it to him all the time because they've been told that they need to. Does it change their style of play in any way that makes it easier for your Burnleys, your Villas?
Hey, do you know, imagine what would happen, right? Say they sign Haaland and then they win the Champions League next season. And then Pep is like,
I'm out.
I'm done. And then Haaland's like, what? You told me I'm joining this incredible project. I know I'm here on my own for the next 5 years of this 6-year contract. And then Haaland moves on again.
Well,
I'm envisioning Pep just saying, I've had enough of this once he wins the Champions League.
I think
He needs a break. He needs a sabbatical.
I don't think so. I think that this
Not
is
to stay
now,
there forever, lads.
He needs more for his legacy. He's obviously reading all the stuff about I'm too clever. I need to be the cleverest man in the room. He's read all that stuff. He's reading all the stuff about, like, all that stuff about Liverpool fans and Man United fans being in the press. Like, that means he's reading all the press. And we know from talking to everybody that they all read everything all the time, right? They're not doom scrolling on Twitter. Yes, they are. They're all doom scrolling all the time. So I think he feels like he needs to deliver more than one Champions League for all the money. And now there is no excuses left. There is nothing that can ever say that they can point to and go, we got diddled by a referee, we had an injury crisis. It's like, sorry, you've got the best players in the world, you've got the best team in the world, and you keep not winning. What's going on? What's the problem here, Pep?
And it comes down to one game next season where Pep's legacy is on the line, and it'll be at a Champions League final if they make it. Like, just on that kind of idea of what the sort of game will be for Manchester City, there's obviously such tight margins given the height that they're operating off. And it did feel that maybe when Pep came in initially, the individual greatness statistically of Sergio Aguero dipped a little bit. He obviously had a great role to play, especially after Jesus came in and he kind of reinvented his role as a centre forward. But I'm talking goal scoring Sergio Aguero. I think his highest tally in a Premier League season would have come before Pep Guardiola arrived, even though he was still an outstanding player after Pep Guardiola arrived. So this sort of these ridiculous figures that maybe I mentioned a moment ago that we might expect from Erling Haaland, the one complication is that we haven't actually seen that from an individual striker
Ever.
under Guardiola.
Yeah, and also, like,
Well, Messi under Guardiola. But
sorry, but in the Premier League I'm talking about, do you know, in the Premier League I've got the top 10 in one season ever. Do you know? Do you have an idea?
I suppose Ronaldo maybe before he left.
How many goals do you think in the
Premier League season? 30?
In the Premier League only. So 29 goals is good enough for 10th. And then Drogba,
23.
Kane have 29. Kevin Phillips, Thierry Henry, Robin Van Persie, Harry Kane again have 30. Alan Shearer, Cristiano Ronaldo and Luis Suarez have 31. And Mo Salah is on his own as the top scorer in a single Premier League season, Premier League only, with 32 goals in 2017-2018.
So that's got to be the target. That's
Yeah.
got to be the target for the talent we're talking about here. But does the Manchester City system allow that to happen?
And look, I suppose here's the thing. He could score 60 goals in the Premier League, and if they don't win the Champions League next season, we'll be like, well, that didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to. You know?
Yeah, Real Madrid beat them late on after shithousing their way through a system that'll stop number 9.
Hey, Ger, I meant to say to you, Newcastle United will overtake Manchester United. Your big take from last Friday. Well, baby, we only lost 4-0.
Well, I was
They
thinking,
lost 5-0. So it's already looking good for United next season.
on Saturday, I was definitely gonna retweet this, gonna put that out.
Yeah, you were retweeting, be damned.
But I still think I think it's actually even more evident. The 5-0 is obviously less significant because it's against Manchester City, and 2 of the goals come after the 90th minute. But the 4-0 absolute dismembering of Manchester United by Brighton, it's very, very hard to come back from that. Maybe it's a hinge point, and maybe everybody looks at themselves, and maybe everybody decides, yeah, okay, we're grand. But I'm looking through that team, and I'm going, who does Ten Hag look at next season and go, you're my guy, and you're my guy, and you're my guy, and you're my guy? He says it to 1 or 2 people in that entire changing room. And after that, this is a massive work of remedial action where he's trying to turn some non-footballers into footballers, some reasonable footballers into good footballers, and one good footballer into a great footballer, and that's it. And is Bruno still a good footballer?
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
Is
He's
he?
in a funk. We all get into funkster. Do you know? He's
Tactically
in a funk
anarchic.
this year.
Tactically
But
anarchic.
Sure, that's like... No, that's not like... Look at the goals and assists he signed in January 2020. Yeah, I mean, his weak point might be his inability to take on tactical nuances, but then his plus points are far outweigh them in terms of his goals and assists. He's just having an atrocious season like everybody else from Manchester United, bar David De Gea and Cristiano Ronaldo. In terms of like the 4-0 against Brighton, like, you know, it's the lowest point and they won't recover from it. Last day of the 2018-19 season, United lost 2-0 at home to Cardiff. It was like a bookmark. You know, like
Last
there's
day of the
loads of bad
season.
results.
Last day of the season
This is pretty much, it was the second last game of the season.
Okay, it's the same thing. I don't think it's
This
the
is
same
the
thing.
same
I mean, there's still bits to play for. There's still position in the Premier League table,
Europa
which is
League,
worth
Conference
money.
League.
Now, this is your Stoke City moment. That's the analogy you were looking for. The Brendan Rodgers Stoke City, Liverpool.
That wasn't.
Stoke City.
I was saying the opposite.
Yeah.
Because the poor results, lads, have been fairly commonplace for the last 9 years, that it's kind of hard to pick the absolute low point. You could have said in that same 2018-19 season, the 4-0 away to Everton was terrible, when Solskjaer uncharacteristically eviscerated his players in the post-match interview. There's been loads. Liverpool a few weeks ago was terrible. That was Liverpool's easiest performance of the season so far against Manchester United. Like, it was like a FA Cup third round tie for a lower league table. They're an absolute shambles of a club. They're a bunch of cowards, those United players. I felt pretty strongly about it against Brighton, but it's not the low point. It's just one of many.
No, it's a new low. We were having this argument about we were picking the nits about the lows. Is it the lowest of the lows? No, because it can still go lower.
Like, are you buying stocks in Manchester United now, or are you waiting?
I still think there's a depression to come.
Yeah.
The first 6 months of Ten Hag are going to be absolutely desperate. There's no way that he can walk in and make the team they might be able to 0-0 their way through their first 10 games, but I'm predicting more draws than wins in their first 18 league games next year.
And that's totally fine as long as the second half of the season is good and Manchester United fans have that patience, because I think, as we've seen this year, you can charge your way into the top four with a little bit of a late run or any sort of run that involves maybe 5-6 wins in the bounce. And if they can get to that point where they can get that run in and around Christmas, then they're in business, I think.
I think a lot depends on Spurs, and a lot depends on whether or not Conte stays and if they spend money. Because if they spend money and he stays, then you have at least 4 clubs who have their shit together. So there's the top 2 who obviously clearly have. It looks like Arsenal have. It's not guaranteed, but their young collection of players, a collection of young players, is absolutely amazing. And if they were to sign some experience, then you would expect them to be consistent over the course of next season. If Spurs are also consistent, if Conte stays...
Kane will stay now. Kane's not going to go to United now, is he?
There's no, lad, we don't know if Conte's going to stay. Like,
No, we don't. That's what I'm saying. That's literally... I've just said
I
that.
know, but I just want to reiterate that, because you were saying if he stays, as if he might stay. Like, he is the equivalent of renting. He's renting a house with Spurs, but he's still looking to buy.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a good chance he's going to stay, right? And then the last one is Chelsea, is the great unknown. There's rumours in the papers today that Tuchel and Alonso had a row. He took him off at half time and words were exchanged in the dressing room. I'd say words were exchanged in the dressing room all the time, but words are starting to get out. Leaks are starting to appear from Chelsea, and if they were to somehow not finish in the Champions League places, then you're not quite sure what will happen and whether or not the manager will stay and whether or not the new owners like the manager, etc., etc. So it's that bit is still TBC. But if those 5 clubs were good next season, then how are Man United going to fluke their way into the top 4 the way they have done in recent seasons?
Sorry, I meant
they came second last season.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Europa League final.
They have that base of player who've proven that they're good enough to be in that company. And then they added Ronaldo to it, and Varane. And
Varane, and everybody's got worse since they arrived. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe Luke Shaw re-emerges as a good left back.
Like, what's interesting is that, like, if you did like a draft at the start of the season and you threw in Chelsea players, Spurs players, Manchester United players, Arsenal players into the mix, and picked the starting 11 from it, I'm not sure you'd have actually ended up with any Arsenal players in that starting 11. You would have picked from all the other 3 clubs.
Yeah.
And there's a chance they're 1 point behind Chelsea at this point. It's very, very hard to kind of quantify what's actually happened this season with regards to the quality player.
Arteta's the school of Pep, where it's not really about the individual, it's about the system. So shouldn't
that be the case with every manager?
Well, I'm saying it's a good thing. Like, Arteta's done a great job at Arsenal.
It will be Ten Hag as well, right?
But Ger, you said it would be desperate for Ten Hag in the first 6 months. What do you mean by that?
I mean that there is nobody he trusts there yet.
How do we know
Players
that?
are going to have to earn his trust, because he can't have built a relationship with them.
He's had Zoom calls with them.
I mean, exactly. I think that if you look at who is going to leave, none of them you would want to stay, right? But there will be a massive gap in the dressing room where all those seats were, and you've got to fill those. Is he going to fill them with Donny van de Beek? Is he going to bring Van de Beek back? I don't know. He knows him, but
He'll definitely get pre-season at the very least.
Yeah.
does he bring Martial back and try and convince him?
Don't think so.
I don't know. Are they going to continue to pay 100 grand of his wages every week next year? It's another 5 million. Would you rather take the punt and see if you can turn him into something, and then if you can, great, and if you can't,
free hit. The only thing is that you want to give him meaningful game time in the season, and all of a sudden that's another 6 months down in the contract that you lose on the player. but it doesn't seem Manchester United care too much about things
Well,
like
they
that.
don't have bodies to be strikers.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, they actually don't. If
Yeah, they've obviously lost a couple this season.
Cavani and
Various
Greenwood won't be
reasons.
there next season, and so you'll have Rashford and Ronaldo, maybe. And do you want Ronaldo? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think a clean break would be good.
Do you want De Gea? If that's not what if your style of play is like high line, and David De Gea is going to be enforcing that high line, is that going to happen?
Yeah. Are you asking me these questions?
Yeah.
Are you asking everyone?
I'm asking, like, does Ten Hag really? So if you can cash in on Bruno and you can cash in on De Gea, do you actually sell them this summer and think, right, this is going to be a full-on rebuild, and I'm going to sign a goalkeeper who I know is capable of playing a high line. I'm going to play a defence. I'm going to get rid of Harry Maguire too. Like, this is all on the table. There's also on the table that he keeps everybody and tries to fix it, and by Christmas is like they're 14th
Yeah, I mean, he can't.
behind Newcastle.
He can't and won't get rid of everybody immediately, obviously. So then you'll be surprised that he'll just get performances out of players who've been previously terrible. But you're talking like, I would say like 2 or 3 max in and out, beyond the players that are out of contract, which is about a half a dozen actually. So you're talking probably 9 to 10 players max will go, and then he'll probably bring 2 to 3. It won't. Yeah, it is. It's quite a bit, but bear in mind that 2/3 of those outgoings are going to go anyway, regardless of who the manager is.
Dave says Liverpool aren't good enough. Man City are better. End of story. Liverpool are pretty good. They were flaky for a couple of weeks there in the middle of the season, and that cost them dearly. Why is Nathan not on OTB AM? He knows the most about football, says Alan. It's Nathan's burner account there. Nathan is currently playing golf at the Irish Open press day down in Mount Juliet. They were wined and dined last night, so he's sleeping off his steak and red wine, which he can give us a review of on tomorrow's show. Kenny the dad says, what if Haaland cuts his hair and it turns out he's actually Samson and then he's brutal? You'll never walk alone, says Kenny the dad. Jessica says Bruno is extremely average, just like every other good player at United. Even De Gea is at best the 5th best goalie in the league.
Kenny the dad has another great comment on YouTube, which is all United fans thinking it's like the team tune to the new Labour 1997 campaign, which was
Things can only get better.
by
D Ream.
very good. Great knowledge there. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
All right.
Do you know the tune?
Yeah, I do know the tune.
We should sing it.
Yeah, good election for Labour. That.
Yeah, a false dawn, I
Cool
believe they call
Britannia.
it. Man City and Newcastle will dominate English football until Elon Musk decides to buy Brentford, says Fergus. And Mossy says, not only do we have to suffer MUTV on Sky Sports, now we have to suffer it on OTB as well. Moving on, lads. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock this morning. We're going to talk to Daniel Harris at 8:10. We're talking tennis now, though. We've got sports pages for you at 8:35, where we'll give you details of both the Talton Cup and World Rugby's plans for a new global calendar. Anthony Nash is going to join us to talk hurling at 8:50. Dan Carter, the New Zealand legend, is going to join us at 9:10, and then more reaction and analysis from OTB Towers at 9:30. We'd love to hear from you this morning. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, and a reminder, OTB AM is live each morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. So, Colm, your real interest is not Manchester United, it is tennis. And there is a new superstar, has been born quietly, hatched almost overnight over the winter. Who is this guy and why is he so special?
He's been bubbling up for a while, Gerard. This Carlos Alcaraz character from Murcia in Spain. There he is there on screen for the viewers, celebrating his immense weekend. Last week, he made Craig David's 7 days seem like an absolute joke. on Thursday, right, turned 19 and beat Cam Nari, British number 1, last year's Indian Wells champion. Friday, beats King of Clay, Rafa Nadal, on clay in a 3-setter. Saturday, beats Novak Djokovic, the reigning French Open champion, the world number 1, in a 3-set monumental 3.5-hour tussle. And then on Sunday, absolutely obliterates world number 3, Alexander Zverev, in the final. All back to back.
19 and just beaten 2 legends in the world number 3.
And it's never been done on clay to beat Nadal and Djokovic one day after another. But this guy is the real deal. It wasn't like this was a flash in the pan of an amazing week for Alcaraz. Like, he's already won the Miami Open, which is another Masters 1000 event, so it's huge for your points for the end of season. ATP finals when the top 8 players in the world face up against each other, which has been known as, you know, the 5th Grand Slam really. And at the moment he's second in that race to get to that, so he's in pole position to play in the ATP finals. He won the Miami Open, which is actually on hard court too, so that's another surface that he's excellent on. And on the way to winning that, he beat Stefanos Tsitsipas, which was last year's Roland Garros runner-up, one of the best players in the world as well. And before that, this year too, he won the Barcelona Open and he won in Rio as well. Again, beating top players on the way, like Tsitsipas again, Matteo Berrettini, who was last year's Wimbledon runner-up, and Diego Schwartzman. This guy has it all. The quotes coming from the players that he's beaten over the last few days. Alexander Zverev saying that right now, he was directing it to Alcaraz in his loser speech, which was, "You are the best player in the world right now." And Alcaraz has been the best player in the world definitely since the Australian Open in January, when Rafa Nadal won his 21st Grand Slam against Daniil Medvedev. Since then, Alcaraz has been absolutely monumental. Djokovic said that he's breaking all sorts of records. He's the best player in the world this year, no question with that. That was after he lost the semi-final against him on Saturday. Nadal said he's not surprised by how brilliant Alcaraz has been. He's known Alcaraz for a long, long time. And the thing with him is, if you just go on YouTube and watch his highlights from those games that I mentioned, the Zverev, Djokovic and Nadal match, this guy is absolutely everything. He's the fastest player on tour. He's an absolutely brutal set of ground strokes in the forehand and backhand side. He has a really deft touch. Dinks a lot of balls over the net when players are in the back of the court waiting for his thunderbolt of a forehand or a backhand. He's just messing with players the whole time. He's the complete player, and he's just turned 19. Probably the only question is his serving precision, but he actually has a brilliant topspin serve as well that, again, just completely bamboozles his opponents. They go way too wide out in the court. By the time they get it back to him, he's just firing the forehand into the far side of the court. The only thing now that he really has to prove is, can he do a best of 5? Because everything I mentioned there, those 4 tournaments that he's won this year, they've all been best of 3.
Well, I just looked up his Australian Open results and he was beaten by Berrettini.
No shame in that. Berrettini's one of the best hardcore players in the world, and that was the best. That was a 5-setter. It went to the 5th.
It went to the 5th. It went to the tiebreak in the 5th.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And last year he got to the US Open quarter-final, and he was the youngest player to do that in the Open era. So he's well on course. He's very young. I think in terms of winning 2 Masters 1000 events, the only player to do it younger than he was his hero, Nadal, who he beat the other day.
And Berrettini went all the way to the semis where he was beaten by Nadal. So, like, his form line, even from the Australian Open, is decent. You know.
But, you know, the other thing with him too is that generally when a match gets tight, and especially against the titans like Nadal and Djokovic, players tense up. They get very tight. He doesn't. He goes the other way. He actually loves the pressure, and he hits even more freely. And he feeds off the energy of the crowd. But his record this year in 2022 has been incredible. 28 wins, 3 losses. That's a 90% win record. And 8 of his last 9 victories have been against top 10 players. So he relishes the big event. And I think for, you know, like, I've been coming on here for about 3 years talking about tennis, and inevitably we always talk about the big 3 in the men's side. Nadal, Djokovic, Federer, who's essentially finished now. And we're always talking about, well, is there anybody to contend with them? And you have Medvedev now, who won the US Open last year. You have Dominic Thiem, who won it the year before. Alexander Zverev is always thereabouts. Tsitsipas has got to a final. But they all those 4 players who would be probably the closest, along with Berrettini, to actually challenge the big 3, they're all probably missing something. Medvedev is the best of them. Even he consistently is probably missing the absolute, cross-sport appeal of the big 3. Alcaraz, he's only 19, but he has the potential to go past all of them and to be the best player overall. Definitely world number 1 in a few years' time. He's world number 6 now. Last year in May, he was world number 120.
He's second favourite for the French Open. Is that just because of the fact that it's 5 sets and Nadal is heavy favourite over that duration?
I think there's a name we left out. I think Djokovic could easily retain this. Djokovic has had a terrible year. Obviously didn't play the Australian Open. We covered that well. He played very little tennis actually since then. And same with Nadal, since he won the Australian Open. He won the event afterwards in Mexico, I think. Got to the final of Indian Wells and then has taken a few weeks off. So I think Madrid Open, this one that Alcaraz won, was Nadal's first in about 6 weeks. Nadal and Djokovic are playing Rome this week. Alcaraz took it off because he actually got injured in the quarter-final against Nadal. He lost that middle set 6-1 because he went over on his ankle. So that's a slight concern for him. But I would say in terms of contenders for the French Open, it's probably the hardest one to call in a long time, because it was always going to be Djokovic and Nadal. Do you remember last year's semi-final was the best tennis match of the last 12 months? That coincided with the the first day of Euro 2020, Italy against Turkey, where a lot of people actually ended up watching Djokovic and Nadal because it was so brilliant. So everyone was waiting for the rematch this year, but now this kid is coming into it. It'll be a shame if all three are on the same side of the draw, which could very likely be the case, so we won't get to see them play against each other, and it will be the rest that will play them. But that's not confirmed yet. So it's really tough to call, but it's the most exciting Grand Slam left this year. We have Wimbledon afterwards and then the US Open to finish up. But because Nadal, obviously king of clay, Djokovic is the reigning French Open champion, and now you have this kid coming on the scene who you could argue is, definitely the best player in the world in current form, but maybe has the best all-round game in tennis, possibly.
Right.
He's just absolutely brilliant at everything he does, and it'll be really interesting to see if he has the longevity of the two lads.
And what about grass? Do we think the grass
One
and the
thing
hard
we're not
courts?
sure of, he lost in the second round last year in Wimbledon. We're just not sure of that. But the exact same thing was said about Nadal. Nadal got to his first Wimbledon final, I think, in 2007, was easily beaten by Federer. Then the following year, he beat him in the all-time classic final. But Nadal, for a long time, was very poor on grass. He would get knocked out at Wimbledon in the early rounds, and it was really clay was his thing. And then eventually he transitioned that to hard court too, and of course he's won all 4 Grand Slams at least twice. So that's definitely in Alcaraz's ability to do that. I mean, as I said, the 2 1,000 Masters events that he's won this year have been on clay and hard court, so he's just missing grass, which is really a tiny portion of the season. It's just that obviously it happens when Wimbledon happens.
Yeah, and just a reminder too, because it's easy to forget, Alexander Zverev is the guy who there's an investigation hanging over after allegations by an ex-girlfriend. Horrific domestic abuse allegations were made against him. The ATP have announced an investigation, but have yet to reveal any progress in that investigation. They announced it last October.
Yeah.
This is now, I just had to check the date, the 10th of May. And I don't know, this is kind of dragging their heels, it appears, over that. Of course, Zverev maintains he's innocent of all the abuse allegations, but he's also the guy who screamed at the umpire. That was Mexico, wasn't it? And banged his racket off the...
Yeah, we covered that. The 3 of us, he did worse than that. Remember that morning seeing that video, and I was thinking, when was this from? And it was overnight. That was insane. He just missed the umpire's legs, but...
So tennis needs somebody other than him to be reaching finals and good.
Yeah, and I think it is getting a bit awkward with him because he's an excellent player. He's world number 3, and a previous Grand Slam finalist, was 2 points away from winning the US Open in 2020. Brilliant player, and I think the awkward thing is he's always in contention. He's always getting into the last 8 for our final of events, and there's a big element in the room. And tennis, as usual, just does itself no favours in the way it conducts itself, and in all matters, not just the Zverev case. But as you say, look, the investigation is underway. It's still happening, and as you also say, Zverev maintains his innocence.
All right. Alcaraz, he's your hero?
Well, Nick Kyrgios is a Grand Slam champion.
In doubles.
Remember that?
I
in
do.
doubles, yeah.
I do.
That was a great time.
It was.
A great time for tennis.
Look,
really brought the fun to it and the joy. But you're a Kyrgios convert, aren't you?
Yeah, certainly he's winning me over.
The only problem is he's taking the clay season off. He never plays clay.
When you read about some of the stuff, he's spitting in the direction of an umpire. I'm not sure I'm going to bat for this guy.
Yeah, he kind of lets you down at times. Does let you down. He does bring the entertainment.
Does send you messages personally though, so you're delighted. You're happy.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah.
Are you getting another one this year? It's around this time, isn't it? Your birthday?
My birthday?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't for my birthday.
Oh, it was for your wedding.
Stag, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not for the wedding. It was for the stag.
Okay,
These are.
I think it is. Wish me happy
Separate
birthday.
things.
I don't think he was listening to the instructions. But yeah, Alcaraz. No, he's so enjoyable to watch, and I honestly would encourage anybody to just look it up on YouTube. And he's such a big following. I was seeing the figures on those videos, the highlights of Nadal, Djokovic, and Zverev. They all have 1 million plus views each. Tennis is really loyally followed around the world, and this guy is a lot of people's heroes already. Just the way he plays, because it's not attritional stuff. He's just gung ho, and his precision on the ground strokes is just unbelievable. Even you should actually check out the point to win the match against Nadal. He was way out of the court. Nadal had a net volley which he put in, and it was that was for any other player that would have gone in, and that would have been the point for Nadal. Alcaraz sprints back and then just top spin forehand into the far right corner, and Nadal just put his head down and was like, fair play. Incredible. It was the first time he beat Nadal, actually. He had lost to him in the Indian Wells semi-final earlier in the year. So he's his hero. He beat Nadal. Nadal's not surprised. And these guys are getting jealous. Djokovic and Nadal don't like this. They don't like this kid coming on the scene.
Good.
So it's nicely competitive.
All right. James says, why is there no mention of Sunderland's playoff win against Sheffield Wednesday last night? The playoffs provide great football drama, and OTB AM regularly mentions the Sunderland Till I Die Netflix documentary. I still haven't seen it.
No.
Sunderland Till I Die. Oh, it's great. Did you watch Class of '92, the Salford City
Is it a series?
evolution? Yeah,
No.
it's ongoing.
No, it's too long.
It's quite good, actually.
I'm not committing to.
It's very good.
I've had enough of the Class of '92 in my life. I don't really need any more.
It's unbelievable how hands-on Gary Neville is, especially versus all the other owners.
Is it unbelievable how
versus
hands-on?
the other owners? He does absolutely everything. Surely he must know a bit
What was the
more than
Amsterdam
everybody
said
else.
about him? What was it? I'm not
Ask them
surprised to
about it.
learn that he is.
No, I know that, but it's unbelievable
I would not be
even by
surprised
his
if he was like
standards.
folding towels in the hotel they own just to make sure that they're all folded properly. And that's how you do it. That's how you do it. That's how you fold those towels.
To be fair, Yap Sam threw Phil in with that as well.
He did.
It was both of them. So maybe Gary on his own is not very busy.
He seems busy.
It's all Phil.
Yeah, and Roy King just shows up sporadically to the matches just to watch and then just idles away. But it's very interesting. He's just so passionate about the whole thing. But Sunderland Till I Die is amazing just because of the chaos.
Well,
that's pure chaos. Whereas Salford's a bit of sense to it all.
it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if Keane had taken the Sunderland job, because last night they scored like a 93rd minute winner to beat Sheffield Wednesday in the first semi-final. So they're through to the final. I've no idea who they're playing. Wickham. All right.
Do you think he should have taken the Sunderland job?
No, I don't.
I don't think so either.
I don't. But this is the job. Like, that's what he would have had to reach the semi-finals, the final of the playoffs, for it to be successful, and get promoted for it to be successful. So, there's your sliding doors moment for the day. If you want to get in touch, you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/offtheball. You should subscribe there as well. And a reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The Cork GA slump, very quickly. Were you in Park you're in, Colm?
No, I was
Not a match-going fan.
I was admiring Owen. Well, I was supposed to go to the Munster match and just didn't go in the end. So that was actually my choice, was go to the Munster game. But yeah, it was a who's who at Park Ewing. Micheál Martin, Roy Keane and Owen Sheehan. Top three celebrities. You probably were the third most famous person there, were you?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Did you note that?
David Clifford was there.
No, while watching.
And
is there a power ranking of the top most famous Sam boys?
like, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of somebody else. That's
Like
famous.
Dick Spring.
Dick Spring and Michael Fassbender.
Oh, really?
Number 3 and 4.
All right. Did Dick Spring go there?
I
just made that up.
actually don't know.
I don't.
Pat Spillane did, didn't he? Yeah.
One would Spillane be more famous than Fassbender and Kerry, do you think?
Unfortunately, by a bit of
By
distance.
distance? You think so, yeah?
Yeah.
If you were to do like a who's this, everybody...
Exactly. On that front, definitely. I think actually he'd be more. I'd say Fassbender would be more famous by name than face.
Right.
But his face is obviously still very famous.
Yeah.
See Killarney.
He is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all been downhill since
He's
the Guinness ad, hasn't it?
He's essentially David Clifford's neighbour. I
Is
guess.
he?
Yeah.
All right. Something in the water down there. So Cork football, are you happy with what you saw? Is this the age of moral victories for Cork football column, and so therefore that was like a quantum leap forward, a 12-point hammering at home? 11? 12?
No, it got to the 55th minute.
Oh, you get a special prize for being level after 55 minutes.
Oh, what do you want from us? What do you want? Sorry, what do you want?
Kerry obliterated them. Like, Kerry toyed with them. Like
It wasn't,
a cat
yeah,
toying
I
with
mean,
a mouse.
12 points
We know
in
what
the
wins,
end.
what happens? The mouse dies.
They ran away in the last 10 minutes, but as they should, like. Look where Cork are and look where Kerry are. Anything less would have been a disgrace. I was saying to Owen on Friday, like, what margin of victory would you be disappointed in?
6 points. 6 points would have been like, yeah, okay, we were in that game. But the 12 points where the towel gets thrown in at the end, where it's like a training game for the last 7 or 8 minutes and the scores keep coming and keep coming and keep coming and it's non-stop, like, that's the bit where your defensive structure has broken down, where something has happened. And, like, I don't know. I think that... I do think there's a red storm rising. We keep seeing the underage teams being brilliant.
Well, I find it very interesting that I know I keep bringing it up, but it was just interesting that the strength and conditioning thing is the element that was mentioned in our conversations around Cork hurling last week, which would have the same, I guess, people running it as the Cork footballers and their underage strength and conditioning, a county-wide programme to get people at Limerick's level when it comes to hurling, and on the evidence of Saturday they also need to get to Kerry's level when it comes to the physicality, because Kerry looked at Dublin a few years ago and said there's the barometer and we need to get there. And you could see every single year over the last couple of years O'Shea and Clifford just got bigger and bigger and bigger to the point now where they're men and they're ready to tackle anybody in the country, and Cork just look off it. And I think that's why they tailed off later in the game rather than some sort of tactical implosion.
Yeah, but that can be done. The strength and conditioning can obviously be fixed. sixth. Anyone can reach those heights if you have the will to do so. But skill-wise, like, it's encouraging. Like, you know, we failed to mention so far there was a 12-point margin there, but the point of the match was Stephen Sherlock with the drop of the shoulder and outside of the right foot. Beautiful.
And Cathal O'Mahony
Beautiful.
pinged over a couple of nice ones as well. So, like, you can hang your hat on those two inside forwards as somebody to build a team around over the next 10 years.
Yes, they won the game on TikTok. Congratulations. Well done.
We live in a content-driven world.
We do.
So
and
maybe
that's all
Cork did win,
and look,
really,
I don't know.
numbers-wise.
And at the end of the year, maybe they're the two most famous Gaelic footballers in the world. I don't know. Maybe that's where the world is going. I don't know.
Why do you hate Cork?
I don't. And for the first time in my life, I feel sorry for you. It's mad.
But you physically got really happy there when you were talking about Cork. I just saw you just perked up.
No, Colin. That's your paranoia. Infamy. They all have it. Infamy. 10 minutes past 8 this morning. If you want to puncture Column's Cork paranoia, we'd love to hear from you. You can use the hashtag OTBAM, or you can leave a comment in the YouTube stream. As I said, if Tip get to Munster, to the Munster football final, who plays in the Talton Cup?
Who plays in the Talton Cup? Well, I actually have the list of teams here if you want to go through it. So the only TBCs around Talton Cup entrance at the moment are regarding Tipperary and Westmeath, because they're obviously playing this weekend. If they win, they avoid the Talton Cup completely. Because of the fact that they're in the provincial semi-finals already, they've already avoided the Talton Cup preliminary round, which exists. So Ryan McCluskey, formerly of Fermanagh, tweeted yesterday a screenshot from what looked like an official GA document. And he said, if this is legit, then Lord of God, who is actually behind it? New York at 2 buys, and then regional games for what reason? Discuss. And what you currently have is a preliminary round which involves Waterford, Carlow, Wexford, London, Wicklow, Laois, Longford, Fermanagh, Antrim, Offaly and Down. And then into round 1 you've got confirmed Cavan, Leitrim and Sligo, as well as the 2 teams that have to be confirmed. What will happen then is that those round 1 games will be sectioned off into region. So if we assume that Tip and Westmeath both lose this weekend, then you're going to have a northern section and a southern section.
I was just about to say, and they've gone for the not very often used west and east. No, they're gone for north and south.
Yeah.
Like, what? North and south? I mean, really?
And you'd have to say some of the better teams are in the northern section as well.
No. So they get punished. Because they exist in Ulster, and then they get punished again in the Talton Cup.
Yeah, maybe the geographical breakdown of the Alliance League last year was something that the GA really liked and thought to themselves, this is something that we can actually get behind. So the northern section at the moment would be Cavan, Down, Fermanagh, Antrim, Longford, Westmeath, Leitrim, Sligo. The southern section, in fairness, would have Offaly in it, and then Laois, Wicklow, London, Wexford, Carlow, Waterford and Tipperary. Again, we're assuming that Tipperary and Westmeath are going to be in this competition. So the northern section is far stronger if you're a
next
northern
year it's round
team.
robin, obviously. Right? Next year, 2023 is going to be the round robin.
Yeah,
and I think it's still going to be north and south.
Right. Okay. Well, then that's not amazing. Like, it's like the whole idea was that we would move away from the fact that you are based in Ulster and therefore you are at a disadvantage because you were an Ulster team. You'd like to think that the structure would be able to represent or realise the fact that is just an inherent unfairness in the competition, but it seems that this sort of notion is fairly baked in.
All right. It's 13 minutes past 8 this morning. If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. The hashtag is OTBAM. This is OTBAM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Daniel Harris is standing by. We're going to get to him next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete, to win, and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
I knew it was going to be a tricky one, but I definitely didn't think there'd be no shots on target.
Keep up to date with the latest WSL action.
You have to win dirty sometimes, every single team, no matter who you are, no matter what firepower you have.
And the biggest interviews.
A difference in our style, but it wasn't a difference as to who we are or what our identity as a team were.
Subscribe to the Koi Gig podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
Paddy, I go, what? He goes, Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James House. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GEA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 8:15. Daniel Harris is with us. Daniel, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
I'm good, thanks. Hi, everyone.
Let's start with the title race briefly. I assume it's over at this point. Manchester City couldn't possibly shoot themselves in the foot from here, could they?
I mean, they could, because way stranger things have happened. But it's City in particular, also Liverpool, but City in particular, have mastered winning games in the Premier League. So it would be surprising if they were to avoid winning 2 of the last 3, I suppose.
The signing of Haaland, we were having this conversation a little bit earlier on. It's always interesting when the best young available player in the world signs for the league champions. And there's always an assumption in many places that this is just going to automatically make them unbeatable. But that's not the case. Very rarely that one player tips a team from really good to great. What's your instinct about how this is going to work out?
Well, if you were to look at the Real Madrid game, you would think if City had Haaland in that fixture, then that ties over in the first leg. It won't sort out their defensive issues, because this season, I would say, City lack a little bit of ruthlessness at either end, and it will address the ruthlessness at the top end of the pitch. It won't make them defend better. And the reason why Pep Guardiola keeps not winning the Champions League is that eventually, if you keep playing good teams, which doesn't always happen, if you look at Liverpool's draw, they haven't really played anyone good following the group stages yet. But you generally come across a team, and if you don't defend properly, eventually you come across a team who might be inferior but have elite level attackers, and then you're in. There's a possibility you might lose, and that's why City, if we look at what they've done in Europe over the last few years, they haven't really even lost to the best teams around. They've been losing to Monaco, they've been losing to Tottenham, they've been losing to Lyon, and that's because they don't defend well enough. And Pep Guardiola's never had a good defence. He's had teams that are so good you can barely get at the defence, but Haaland won't make City defend better, but he will make it easier for them to outscore whoever they happen to be against.
So by that token then, it's not inevitable that this is the thing that makes them 3 out of the next 5 Champions League winners, is it?
No, it's not, but it's possible because Haaland is a monster, and nothing suggests that he won't turn up and just score loads and loads of goals. You can have a situation in a team where you have one very prolific goal scorer that it can mean you don't get as many goals as you should from everywhere else. Definitely, the players that played with Ruud van Nistelrooy, you definitely thought that about him at the end. I'm not sure they so much thought about him when he was banging them in and holding it up and bringing others into play and creating goals out of nothing. Once he lost his pace, sort of 2004, 2005, swapping him for Louis Saha, who was nowhere near as good a player, but much better at bringing other players in and worked much better in the team, was actually a really good move by Fergie. But when these guys are in their prime, they tend to be people that you want to have around, because they mean that games where you might not be playing well or whatever, they're able to score goals out of nothing to create their own goals, or if you create them one chance, they will find a way of getting it, of scoring. And Haaland, I'm sure, will give City that, but he won't make them unbeatable, or no, because they'll still defend badly with these defenders.
Manchester City already have some really good attackers, to say the least. They may not be people who will score 40 goals a season, but they're really, really good. So what happens to Gabriel Jesus this off-season? Does Jack Grealish get better having a striker like Haaland beside him? How do you see that constellation of forwards playing out over the next couple of months?
Well, I guess what it means is Haaland will play almost every game at centre-forward, so you're not going to see much of Phil Foden playing through the middle anymore, or Jack Grealish for that matter. Grealish, I thought, was a strange signing because although obviously we know he's a good player, he's not someone who really fits into the way City play football. I felt like the fact that he wasn't used in the Atletico home game in particular didn't look good, because that was a game that to me was made for Grealish, because we know that Atletico are going to sit back and City are going to have a lot of possession. And one of the ways that you might be able to use Grealish is because in that kind of situation, you might be able to have a few more touches someone who can conjure you a goal out of nothing. But in general play, in the way that City like to play in most games against most normal opposition, it was kind of hard to see where Grealish might go, and that's still the case. So if he wants to play more football, he'll have to get better. I don't know if he will or not, and he might not be given the opportunity to get better because they've just signed someone which is more competition for places, because Haaland's going to play in every game. So there are going to be fewer places in the team up for grabs for someone like Grealish to have. Gabriel Jesus is probably in trouble. He was signed to be a centre forward. He was signed to take Aguero's place. And Guardiola tried really hard to slot him in instead of Aguero, but it turned out that Aguero was having absolutely none of it and was just too good. And he also probably was able to do more of what Guardiola wanted than Guardiola had supposed. But with someone like Jesus, he's obviously good to have in the squad, but he's now, as I said, there's now one position fewer for Jesus to play in, unless Haaland's is injured or being rotated. So he might decide that the time has come to leave. But at the same time, it is really hard to leave a club who are basically guaranteeing you medals every season. So I don't know how he feels about that, but it's only possible to keep a player as good as Gabriel Jesus, who's not playing regularly, if you're winning, and City are winning. But he might decide that this is one step too many and decide to get out of there.
Like, he's obviously been linked with Arsenal, but does Jesus improve most teams in the Premier League outside of Manchester City and Liverpool, or do you look at Chelsea and Manchester United and Tottenham, obviously, and think to yourself, nah, they couldn't really do with them?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. But does he improve them enough to get them closer to Manchester City and Liverpool? And the answer to that is, probably looking at United, who do need a centre forward, I wouldn't look at Gabriel Jesus to be that centre forward, even if he didn't play for City, because I don't think he's good enough for that. Arsenal might consider him to be someone who is within their price range, who might be worth a look. But other than that, I think he's probably struggling in England, because the clubs in England will be looking at probably younger players or better players.
It's interesting to think about what the future constellation of that team will be. Like, what in the big games next season when Haaland comes in, how will they line out? And now having an out-and-out number 9 who is the focal point of all the attacks and who is demanding the ball and the chances, is it the same? Is it Mahrez on one side, Foden on the other, and then a similar midfield to what we've seen at the moment? Or is there somebody who plays as like a number 10 behind the number 9 and it's a more...
I doubt that. I mean, very few teams have a number 10. What they'll be looking for is they'll be looking for balls coming quickly across the face of goal. And that will be Mahrez, Sterling, Foden. And because that's kind of, I mean, Haaland can do lots of things because he's big and strong and powerful enough to run with the ball and to bring others into play. But City scored loads of goals. Think about all the City goals, almost kind of the archetypal City goal. And it was before that, it was one of the archetypal Wenger goals when he had Wiltor, Henri Perez. There was a ball rolled across the face of the goal for someone to tap in from not very far out. And I think that we'll see Haaland scoring a lot of those goals where the ball goes wide, where the build-up's probably quite slow, but then all of a sudden it's boom, 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 the ball goes wide, 1 or 2 passes between the fullbacks and the wingers, it's zipped across the goal very quickly, and Haaland is the first player at the front post, or the first player there for the cutback to finish. I think we'll see a lot of those kinds of goals, because that's kind of the football that Guardiola is trying to play in the first place, and he's basically signing the best player in the world and getting across the front post quickly.
Having someone like Haaland in the squad now is something that's going to give Pep Guardiola a little bit of a kick for next season, you'd suspect. It's interesting, though, to weigh up where the energy levels are in terms of Pep and his longevity at the club. Like, even just listening to his comments the other day about the media being packed full of Liverpool and Manchester United fans, it kind of suggests to me this sort of mentality that Pep really kind of sees his job as, you know, the outlier, the guy to prove everybody wrong.
What a rebel. The manager of Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and the richest club in the history of football. He spent the most money in the history of football while abusing human rights. What an absolute rebel of a maverick. I mean, he's pissed off ultimately, isn't he? And you can understand that, and that's part of the makeup of obsessive winners. And we've seen that from Guardiola all the way through his career. We've seen it, from when he left Barcelona and Tito Villanova wasn't well, and Guardiola was just obsessed with his football. And everything is about delivering this perfect, aesthetically perfect football in the manner precisely that he prescribes it. And everything is in service of that. And this is the highest moral standard, is Pep Guardiola's football is not just an aim, it's a moral standard, and it's that the moral standard of this football, the moral rectitude of this football, is what enables him to forget about what is enabling him to produce this football and the suffering and human rights abuses that are allowing that to happen. And that's why he's able to go in full honesty and say what he says about everyone supports Liverpool and it's not fair on poor City that people don't want them to win. And for number one, I don't think that's true. I think that as clubs, there is much more hatred for Liverpool than there is for Manchester City, because Liverpool are traditionally teams that have been successful, and teams that have traditionally been successful are teams that are more likely to be hated. And there are obviously various other reasons why people dislike Liverpool. The only reason people care about Manchester City is the human rights. It's not anything to do with City as a club beyond that. It's the human rights and the manner of the spending of the money that is obviously related to that in a sports washing project. That is why people don't like Manchester City. Otherwise, I think there's much more animus towards Liverpool than there is to Manchester City, because it's in football, grudges go deep, because football's been happening for a long time. So those grudges have been deepening for a long time. And City have only just got, in football terms, City are arrivists. They've only just arrived. So there's not been enough time for this hatred of Man City to be enshrined in the mentality of the wider footballing public. Obviously, United hate Man City because they're local rivals. But other than that, I don't think people that I speak to feel that City are generally a better option when they're competing for titles with another team, because another team is likely to be a team that other club have more history with, so dislike more intensely. So I can understand why Guardiola thinks that, because being the monomaniacal genius that he is, it's only possible often to see things from your own perspective, because that's all you're thinking about. Every minute of every day is that. So it's easy to build that mentality that everyone's out to get you, particularly when people celebrate your downfall. But number one, they're celebrating had someone else had a downfall, they'd be celebrating that. And that's what football is. It's enjoying the misery of others. That's a lot of what competitive team sport is. Whether it's football or rugby or cricket, if your team's not winning, then you want all the other teams to lose somehow, because that is consoling. I mean, I look at myself as a Man United fan. United got gubbed 4-0 by Brighton at the weekend, and yet this was one of the better weeks being a United fan in recent times, because City got knocked out of the Champions League in humiliating style, and Liverpool also lost, so looks like they're not going to win the league. And that is part of the parochial, childish nature of football that we love so much.
And the 4-0 defeat to Brighton certainly gave the Liverpool fans some comfort over the weekend, and the City fans some comfort too.
And rightly so, of course.
It's a carousel.
Enjoying that.
A carousel of shitness.
Yes. And I guess Guardiola, that's not something, because he's not a fan. He's someone intimately involved in a particular team and in doing everything to make that team the best they can be. And he's had a disappointment last week, a significant one, that was a repetition of several other significant disappointments we've seen over and over again. You can understand why he's feeling like the world is against him, but obviously it isn't.
Let's do a quick bit on Manchester United here. The level that they've fallen to at the moment. We've been nitpicking over. Is this the new low? Is it as low as it goes? How long do you think it will realistically take Ten Hag to inject some purpose to the club, and how much patience will there be with that?
There'll be plenty of patience, but the patience, you have to see things improving. So if he starts badly, obviously there'll be pressure, because you're manager of Man United, and if it's crap, there'll be pressure. But provided you can see improvements, then people will always be patient while it looks like things are improving and while it looks like there's a plan. And in some ways, it being so bad right now is advantageous to the manager, because it means that it's not very difficult to make it better than this, because it's so dreadful right now. And also what he's got that other managers before him haven't had is it's obvious that that players need to go, and players will be going. Mata, Matic, Cavani, Pogba, Lingard will definitely go. Bailly and Jones will almost definitely go. And so before you've even started, that's quite a lot of room in the squad, quite a lot of money, quite a lot of players to replace. And that's something that Ten Hag will presumably relish. I mean, who knows what sort of job the board will actually do out of making this happen. But with so many players who will 100% be disappearing because it's the end of their contracts, he will have quite a lot of scope to bring in the players that he wants. And during pre-season, he'll have the opportunity to try and drill them in the way that he wants to play football. So I think that it's, in a way, it's better. If you look at the other managers coming in, Moyes inherited Fergie's team that was full of players who were past their peaks, who were able to eke out one last title, and he didn't really have the means to sort that out because David Gill left that summer as well, and he ended up with one player that was Fellaini. Then you had Van Gaal coming in, who sold good players, bought crap players, and you had Mourinho having to deal with that whilst buying crap players of his own. And then you had Ole, who was stuck with the detritus of everyone, whilst also trying to buy good players. And then the manager now comes in, and it's got to a point where it's so bad and so many players will go that actually he's sort of not really dealing with that much mess. He's really, and a team that has been compiled by loads of managers with different ideas about how you should play football, he's just sort of able to come in and start doing the things that he wants to do from the beginning. So hopefully that will make things good, or at least better quite quickly.
Well, there is a possibility that it takes a while for his ideas to get through to some of those players who have been conditioned under different managers and who are just the wrong players. So, like, unless he can sign 8 to 10 players quickly and bed them in, there's a good chance this team is 10th or in that kind of ballpark in the league table around Christmas. Is there patience for that?
There is, but I'd be surprised. It won't, because if this team finished second last season. I was thinking about it the other day that at the end of the last day of last season, United were safely ensconced in second. Ole picked half-picked Ahmad and Elanga picked kids to play against Wolves. United went to Wolves and won. They're not all terrible players. There are players who are playing at the very trough of their ability, at the very bottom of the trough of their ability. So coming in and improving that, a new manager who's actually here to stay, so it's not like the Rangnick situation where the players tossed it off months ago, where I don't know, we don't know how many players is going to be allowed to sign, but we do know that it can't be 3 with all the players that are leaving. It just can't be. And so it shouldn't be that difficult to have a forward line of Jadon Sancho, whichever forward you sign, and whichever other forward, and getting something more out of Marcus Rashford, scoring enough goals so that you don't finish 10th. It shouldn't be difficult to get more out of a team than that. And when you just signed a decent centre forward, you're going to get much more out of Bruno Fernandes as well. And it's obviously up to Ten Hag to come in and to use his ability, not just as a tactician or a strategist or whatever, but as the leader to make stuff better. That should also be something that the manager's capable of. And that's the manager's job. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think United will finish 10th next season. I think that they should be able to make it better enough, quickly enough to be much better than that.
Can you see a future for Fred and McTominay and those players?
Not really as first team players. I mean, I have sympathy for McTominay because he's been the one who keeps playing in the position that isn't his. But obviously he should be playing it better. He looked like, until this season, he looked like he was improving. He's had a dreadful season. I mean, you can't pretend to the contrary. There was a time when McTominay was quite a good first reserve. You knew that he wasn't really good enough to play in midfield for United, but he had good attributes, and you saw him using them. He was a good ball carrier. He was good when the ball dropped around the edge of the box. He was quite a good finisher. He was good in the air. He was physical. He's just had an absolutely dreadful season. Fred will, again, also, he'll never be good enough, but he's not a bad rotation player in the right system. So how much we see of them next season, I guess, depends, because, again, McTominay has played really at the bottom of his ability level this season. Whatever people say about his ability level not being high enough, which is a fair point, he can't play any worse than he has this season. United will sign a number 6, so he won't have to play there again. And he's not someone you would necessarily replace in this round because you've got so much other work to do. And he's not someone who is completely untenable as someone who sometimes plays if he's playing in the right position and in the right system in a team that's playing well. But clearly McTominay and Fred are not going to be fixtures in a team that wins the league anywhere.
How long before they're competing for a league title? What's realistic?
I think the season after next would be the best case scenario. But you'd have to, I don't know how many players they're going to be allowed to buy, but you'd have to nail almost all the transfers, which is always the case with every club that isn't funded by state wealth. That if you want to compete against Liverpool, who have the greatest manager, in my opinion, the greatest manager of the generation, an all-time great manager, and are nailing every single transfer over and over again, then you need to do that as well. If you're competing against City, who have the generation's other greatest manager and state wealth, then the players that you have to come in, you have to nail the transfers. And Ole didn't nail the transfers, and that was in the end probably the thing that killed him, was not signing enough good players. And Ten Hag has got the ability to sign quite a few players, but he has to sign the right players, even though he'll be hopefully better at extracting the most from whoever he signs than. But it should take a year probably to, let's say United get 5 new players this summer. That doesn't seem beyond the realms of possibility. 5 new players, that's half a team. So a season to settle them in, a couple of months to settle them in and to get them playing the way that they want to play. And then if they can nail next summer's signings, they should be in a position to start pushing. But until that happens, it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also as well, I think that kind of premise is based on the fact that Manchester City and Liverpool and the other clubs around Manchester United stand still to a certain extent. It's banking on the fact that Liverpool don't continue to hit the jackpot with every single signing, and I think Manchester United need to close the gap on a recruitment level to those clubs, as well as hoping that the players that they have in the pitch are closing that gap as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Liverpool, the thing is Liverpool aren't going to, how many players do we think Liverpool are going to sign this summer? 1, 2? They're not going to be that much better next year than they were this year, probably. Number one, because in terms of league points, there aren't that many more league points available that it's realistic to expect them to get. And they're not going to go and refresh the whole team because they don't need to, because the team's excellent. So they might sign 1 or 2 players this summer. They might not sign even players for the first team. They might sign players who they want to integrate in the first team. So I don't think that Liverpool are going to get loads and loads better this summer. City are obviously signing Haaland, which will make them very strong favourites to win the title next season, because they look like they're going to win it this season, and they just signed Haaland. Doesn't always work like that. But United signed Van Nistelrooy and Varane after winning the title 3 seasons in a row, but didn't then go and win the league the season after that. But then on the other hand, they lost the Abstam. City aren't going to go and sell one of their defenders. But there's a limit to how good it's possible for a football team to get. They're not going to get so good that they win every game by loads of goals all the time.
Yeah,
I think difference.
And that brings the conversation round full circle again, because I think that there is an assumption from some people that that's what's going to happen with Haaland, that suddenly City ascend to a level that is a combination of Arrigo Sacchi's Milan, the Liverpool team that won 3 Champions Leagues in the 70s and 80s, and I don't know, the Arsenal Invincibles. But it's not going to happen. They're not going to. We can't just pencil them in for the next Champions League and the one after that by virtue of.
I agree. Like, Sacchi's Milan only won 1 Serie A. They're famous for winning the Champions League, but they only won 1 with the European Cup. But they only won 1 Serie A. So I mean, things never work out in the way that you expect them to, because if they did, we wouldn't really be watching it. You know that roughly how it's going to go, or at least City and Liverpool probably going to be near the top of the league next season. At
least until the semi-final stage of the Champions League, we have a fair idea how it's going to go. But then mayhem happens, and that's why we keep tuning in, I think.
Yeah, because when football is a chaotic game and goals are scarce, so the best team won't always win because it's about producing it on that day. And City, City obviously they're going to be better with Haaland. And what Liverpool and City have that United don't have, and what Chelsea don't have either, and what Arsenal don't have, is the belief that they can win any game from any situation. City don't have it in the Champions League, but in the league, they expect to go out every game and win. And you watch United play recently, which is where we were talking about as well. They don't have anything like that belief. They're sort of waiting for something to happen, and that's something that Ten Hag will have to work with. Is mentally this side are completely on its arse, and that's one of the reasons that sometimes you think, well, just a couple of players, but actually the greater churn this summer, the better, because it feels like a lot of these players are finished as Man United players, because not just because their ability isn't where it needs to be, but mentally to produce the level that they've been producing over the last few months makes you think that they're not people that you think you'd be able to rely on in any sensible bid to win any of the big pots.
Good stuff, Daniel. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Have a good day.
It's Daniel Harris. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. MJ Maloney says signing 21-year-old Haaland for 63 million instead of 29-year-old Kane for 150 million is surely one of the best deals around. But again, City will get criticism for spending money. They will, because them's the rules.
And nobody's criticised City for spending money poorly.
Well, I mean, they spent a lot of money on their defence and they concede loads of goals in the big games. Not in this deal. It's a brilliant deal. Like, getting him for his bio clause getting to the point where that buyout clause was inserted. They are definitely playing chess.
They've conceded the fewest amount of goals to the Premier League this season. I know you're referring to the Champions League.
They would give up all their recent Premier League titles for one Champions League. Paul McGee says, Daniel's so right, I'm smiling here at his autopsy of Manchester United. You'll never walk alone. Brian says, Fred's a whole lot better than McTominay and has much more use as a squad or first choice. Scott McTominay wouldn't stand out playing for Norwich. He's dreadful, says Mr. Quinn. I wonder, is McTominay one of those players who Ten Hag can turn into something? And maybe he's a forward. John Wayne and Aston says, Special Agent Gerrard will roll over against Liverpool tonight and will go like the hammers of hell against City in the last match. It's going to be too late by then, John, I think.
I think McTominay is a forward.
Well, that's where he started.
Yeah.
That's where he started, and he's certainly not a defensive midfielder.
He's certainly not an elite one.
No. 8:40 this morning. A reminder, if you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Right. The football pod is going on tour, and their first stop could be nowhere other than Mayo. It's Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue, who both have very special memories against Mayo, and so we figured we'd let the people of Mayo come and touch the garments. It's in the Royal Theatre in Castlebar at 6:30 on Thursday, the 2nd of June. Tickets are flying. If you want to get one, get onto Ticketmaster now. You can also get them otbsports.com/events. Stay tuned to OTB for details on more shows to come. Now, time for the papers.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be. No, I'm not having that. No.
Okay, I think we can start with OTBSports.com. Yeah. So did Joey Carby let Ben Healy down? It's Monday Night Rugby, that conversation last night. Paul Pogba to Manchester City, the football show discusses. No is what we think, but stranger things have happened. The Irish Times has starting with their referee review from Owen Doyle. A hard lesson to learn. You cannot depend on the TMO as a referee. That's the story there. The back page of all of the English papers has Erling Haaland, who has agreed a 5-year deal to join City, and Klopp says the title race will be boring without Liverpool, which is true. That is correct, as he was apologising for his post-match comments the other day. Plans for new Rugby World Championship. Top 12 nations to fight for title every 2 years, so it's a new competition which has no name. It's called like the Nations Championship. They like their championships. The London Times can reveal that the working plan for the new 2-tiered competition is for the top division to be founded in 2026. So we're 4 years away from this. 12 teams: England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, France and Italy. So the full 6 nations. The old tri-nations as it was: South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and then Argentina, Fiji and Japan making up the 12. There'll be a summer tour and a November tour, and at the end of it there will be, I think, a grand final to crown the World Nations Champion. How does this float your boat?
This has been something that's been mentioned quite a bit, and I think the one question I'd have is, how does the World Cup get affected in terms of its stature, and how does this get affected in terms of the fact that there's an actual World Cup to decide the best team in the world? Yeah,
I think the World Cup is still the actual World Cup, where everybody goes to one place and plays, and there's a draw, and I think that's what really matters. And this is like to make sure that the friendlies, the tests, all have meaning.
Yeah, like you can see,
it's a glorified Nations Cup.
Yeah, and you can kind of see why they want to move that way. And also the question then is around the outside the top tier of nations. Like, obviously you mentioned their sort of involvement there, but how they would be benefited or otherwise from this.
Well, there's promotion and relegation. So Argentina, Fiji, Japan, if they get relegated, Italy, if they get relegated, go down to tier 2, because we'll never get relegated. And then the top 2 teams come up from the Challenger division, as it's called. The Emerging Nations League: Samoa, Tonga, the United States, Canada, Uruguay, Chile, Namibia, Georgia, Romania, Spain, Portugal and the Netherlands. I don't know. Is it better than us going to New Zealand for 3 tests? I mean, I like the Australian tests. I like the New Zealand and South African. But when we go to Argentina, it's kind of like, does this matter? It doesn't really.
No, and yeah, I like it. It's not just Argentina either.
Maybank holiday. Erling gets time off to complete 64 million City transfer, pound sterling. Red still believing. Tuchel in turmoil. That's because he had a row with Marcos Alonso. I don't have the back page of the Irish Independent. You won't be able to find it there if you have it. City Hall, Haaland. Is it? Are we saying Haaland?
Yeah.
I think
Big
Haaland.
threat. Like, I mean, but over time we'll start saying Haaland. Because
Pep gets his man, a strike sensation. Erling agrees to sign stunning Blues deal. It's very anticlimactic, really, isn't it? City Hall, Hal. Delays ruin it for Wayne when Rooney might be leaving. And Munich Mane. This is the big story from the back. Liverpool striker, shock target for German giants, maybe. Serge Gnabry's agent met with Bayern Munich. Serge Gnabry's agent is also the agent for Sadio Mane, and so there's a possibility that Sadio Mane was brought up in conversation. He's in the same contractual situation. Would he be more or less important than Salah? Would you rather have, if you can only have one of them, who are you picking?
Oh, Salah. I see in those reports that Mane's representatives met Bayern Munich representatives in Mallorca, because that's the only place where you can obviously have a meeting instead of going into the den of Munich or bringing somebody over to Liverpool. All agents meetings take place in sunny climes, it seems.
And the other tabloid stories, which we're going to be covering in depth over the next few days, it's not the bionic manhood. That's not the story that I'm looking for there. It's the Wagatha Christie trial finally starts. I know you're going to be all over this, Owen.
It's the biggest story of the year.
Rebecca Vardy versus Colleen Rooney. It looked like Rebecca Vardy was like stealing back into the winning enclosure as like all the details of her textual relationship with her agent/manager disappeared. A series of unfortunate events. A phone in the North Sea, a computer that no longer worked, and the only remaining source being the journalist who broke the story. And sure, look, he can't give up his source, can he? The lawyers for Colleen Rooney were saying, we're not sure that the same standards of journalism apply to tittle-tattle gossip about an Instagram account as it would do to, the government. I'm not sure I agree with that. I agree with it a little bit. Maybe be good if they just leaked them, wouldn't it? To see what the texts were.
Yeah. I don't know, tittle-tattle, government, it's all the same thing really, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. That's you've won that one. All right, Carl Mullaney's with us. Carl, good morning to you.
Hey lads, how's it going?
What's going on?
Not too bad, all good.
Are you looking forward to the Talton Cup?
Yes, I am. I think the soundings have been generally positive. The draw is next Sunday or Monday, I think.
Did you know the draw was geographical based?
No. I think that emerged. The first that I heard of that was, I think Andy Moore mentioned it in his post-match stuff at the weekend. That was the first. I think it's caught quite a few people by surprise.
And where's the border? Are we just giving Connacht to the north? Is that how it works?
I think it's north-south.
And what's the south of Dublin, north of Dublin? Is it the M50? Is it Athlone? Is it like the six counties?
The Westmeath Offaly border.
Well, that's the thing, that Westmeath could be thrown into the northern section.
Yeah.
Where you've got possibly Down, you've got Sligo, you've got Leitrim.
So Sligo's the north?
Yeah, I have Westmeath in the north here, and I have Offaly in the south.
So But the argument is that...
On what basis? Where's your evidence for that?
Because Westmeath is more northerly than Offaly.
Where's your evidence for that? And that's it?
I can give you evidence for that one.
Yeah.
Look at a map of Ireland. Educate yourself.
I mean,
Westmeath speak with Ulster accents.
We do understand the planet is spinning, right? You don't go up the north, really. You don't actually go up the north.
We can call it half one.
You don't go down south.
Half two. In half one, we have Down, Cavan, Leitrim, Sligo, and in half two.
It seems a bit arbitrary, and it kind of seems like it's missing a big opportunity here to have Clare play Antrim, and so we could very well end up with Antrim versus Fermanagh in the Talton Cup.
Now, in fairness, I wonder, are they worried about crowds and supporters having to travel long distances, and whether, if it was Clare versus, or not Clare versus Antrim, but if it was a similar geographical distance, that supporters mightn't be tempted to travel as far as they would. But I think from a player's point of view, maybe they would rather the open draw in terms of just, I sense there's probably familiarity with teams that are so geographically close to them, because challenge matches and the league, of course, was organised on that sort of basis in COVID times as well. So
COVID's over though, right? We've recovered from it, I think. Owen had the best idea, and he gave it away for nothing. It was like, perhaps what they're doing here is they're setting up Friday Night Lights, where there's just an agreement that, look, let's try Friday. I know there's been a backlash from some players in the past about, we've got to work. But you don't train on a Friday
I think they should try that.
No, you can't do that.
Well, the thing with that is, and it's same at club level, if you give players notice, they'll make it work. So you can make it work. And then you've got your weekend to yourself.
Exactly, weekend recovery. Yeah. Be interested though, say if Leitrim gets Sligo get home advantage the game, clashes with a Rovers match on a Friday night. With the people of Sligo stand for that. That's maybe one of the sporting minefields that you could wade into with Friday night lights in the middle of the summer.
But no, I think the soundings have been generally quite positive towards the Talton Cup.
Look, it's really a bit of a dog's dinner solution to a problem that's very straightforward that we could have fixed, that we had the right fix for on the table, and for whatever reason it didn't get through, and proposal B is dead as it stands. But the geographical element of this, I think, doesn't make any sense. And hopefully, next year apparently they're going to persist with it, and there'll be a round robin where it will be like 3 Ulster teams playing each other in a round robin.
Yeah, that doesn't really make any sense. Like, especially considering this geographical element, as you said, was concocted because of COVID reasons, to try and keep the disease local.
Well,
that's just kind of like persisted.
Did they decide on the geographical element of the Talton Cup pre-COVID?
That I don't know, to be fair. So maybe it's completely separate, but it does feel like a continuation of last year's national leagues, which, I mean, it was just a mini Ulster Championship in Division 1 anyway, for half of Division 1. So yeah, making this thing in the round robin situation next year, geographical, makes no sense whatsoever, when, as I say, the entire reason to bring in a new format was to base things on a meritocracy rather than the exact opposite of that, which the provincial championships are.
And then the provincial championships are really important for this year's Talton Cup anyway, in that you get grandfathered into the next round if you made the semi-finals. Yeah, and in fairness to Tipperary and Westmeath, being in Munster and Leinster, both have an advantage as opposed to, say, Cavan, because they'll have easier games. Well, like easier games, they probably won't make it. Like, I mean, maybe Tipperary have a chance of making it, but they have easier games in order to avoid the Talton Cup, and that is patently unfair, you'd have to say. Right. What else is going on, Carl?
Well, Stephen Jarrett says he's not overly concerned about the Premier League title race as Aston Villa side welcome his former club Liverpool to Villa Park tonight. The visitors, of course, still in the hunt for the title. They're 3 points off Manchester City with 3 games left to go, but Jarrett insists his focus is on his current team. That game kicks off tonight at 8 o'clock. Meanwhile, here last night at home in the SSE Electricity League Premier Division, Graham Burke scored a hat-trick in 14 second half minutes to help Shamrock Rovers move to the top of the table. He was on target in a 3-1 win over Sligo Rovers at Tallaght Stadium. Derry City dropping to second. They were held to a 0-0 draw by St Pat's. Shamrock Rovers play Derry City on Friday evening. In Gaelic games, an injury blow for the Cork footballers. Kevin Flav will miss the rest of the season. He's been ruled out due to a knee injury he suffered in Saturday's defeat to Kerry in the Munster Championship. Meath, though, could be set for a boost with the return of former captain Shane McEntee for Sunday's Leinster football semi-final with Dublin. He's currently at home on a break from a tour of duty with the Defence Forces and could feature in that game at Croke Park. It's understudy trained with the panel last weekend. On the field last night, Kilkenny clinched the Leinster under-20 hurling title. They beat Wexford by 113 to 15 points. Jack Doyle scoring the decisive goal there. They'll play Limerick in the All-Ireland final, which is due to take place on the weekend after next. The under-20 football final has been fixed for Páirc Sean McDermott in Carrick and Shannon this Saturday between Kildare and Tyrone. In golf, 15-time major winner Tiger Woods and defending champion Phil Mickelson have both been confirmed in the field for next week's USPGA Championship. The year's second major will be played at the Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa. Woods made his competitive return to the sport at last month's Masters, while Mickelson hasn't played a tournament since February, of course on the back of his controversial comments regarding the Saudi Golf League. And in boxing, finally, Mayo strawweight Shannon Sweeney is the latest Irish boxer between the ropes today at the Women's World Championships. She faces Aldana Florencia Lopez of Argentina for a place in the last 16.
So you didn't make the cut for the Irish Open Media Day down in Mount Juliet?
I just heard about that on the way in there.
Right, okay.
What a nice gig.
Yeah, it's a lovely gig. Nathan is there. Apparently he's the most important golfer in OTB Towers. Not the best, just the most important, as appointed by... Oh, it says Nathan Murphy appointed himself. Sometimes it's just a fact that the people who hold the raffle win the raffle.
It's like, I guess there's like a certain nature to the club that they have in Golf Weekly where they're pretty protective of their own standards. They don't want any kind of younger, fresher face coming in and making them realise what...
Beating them.
Exactly.
They were apparently all saying, confirmed that you are the best golfer, Carl, last night on OTB.
Well, I mean, no one has seen me play, so I'm happy to hang on to that title.
We're trending towards a playoff here.
Yeah,
we're definitely trending towards a playoff.
Yeah.
What would be on the line?
Well, that's the thing. What's the purse?
A belt. Okay. Some kind of belt.
Can we get jacket? Like an OTB jacket.
Definitely an OTB jacket, yeah. A green jacket.
A red.
there's definitely some sort of Mayo, Sligo sort of, ceding land to one of the other counties should one of those people lose, which would be good.
Maybe we get Ballina or Charlestown.
Why would you want that? But it could be a good prize. I think we should make it happen.
Thought you'd made peace with the good people of Mayo.
Ballina's actually a lovely town.
Scratch below the surface for a second, and it's not. Right, Carl, good stuff. Thanks very much. It's 8:54 this morning. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Erling Haaland has missed 16 games for Dortmund in 2021-2022 with 3 separate injuries. Is Haaland too injury prone? Perhaps, or maybe he knew what was happening at the end of the year and he's like, am I really going to risk my bad hamstring / hip / whatever injury? Aina Carroll says Guardiola had no time for Ibrahimovic at Barca. Haaland is essentially a younger version of Ibra. He's not though, is he? They're very different players.
Yeah, I can see kind of
they're both tall.
And they're both number 9. I think maybe is the point due to the fact, I suppose he's saying he's a younger version of Ibra, but I think what's might be a little bit more worrying is just, I guess, Guardiola's relationship with number 9s in general. It's obviously not something that he employs too much, and it's something that he can get by without. I just think that if you're spending this amount of money, you're building your attack around him, and that means a change from what has been a pretty well-firing attack this year. Whether or not he's a younger version of Ibra, I don't think so. He's better than Ibra. Haaland. What's with the silence there? It's sort of like stumbled upon a hot take here.
It's early.
It's early. Haaland is definitely going to be better than Ibrahimovic.
Well, just here's the
definitely
thing.
Is a stupid word to say with regards to sport in any capacity.
You're just assuming the next 10 years are the same level of brilliance as they have been up to this point,
or close to it. Yeah, and I think that would take the level above them.
OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Now, Anthony Nash, former Cork hurler, joins us now as part of the AirGrid timing sponsorship launch. AirGrid, Ireland's grid operator, is now in its 7th year as the official timing partner of the GAA. Anthony, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Well, lads, how are you keeping?
Yeah, good.
I'd be more happy to talk about golf now than hurling, if that's okay, if you want to continue that talk.
What are you playing off?
1.
All right.
A bad one, yeah.
Well, how the hell did you get the time to be a golfer off 1 when you were married to the GAA as you were?
Yeah, when I was playing, I was off about 6, and I hardly ever played my handicap. But since I finished, I got a few lessons and stuff, and I've taken it a bit more serious. I love it. I've always loved it. When I was young, my father got me into it. So every time it was my break from hurling was golf. So just absolutely loved it and still do. It's nearly my favourite sport. So when you started talking about your battle there, I was wondering how could I wangle my way into a 4-ball there.
No problems. I'd say you're short off the tee, are you? That's my prediction here, is that you don't hit the ball very far at all.
I hit it far enough, but it can be far enough left and right as well. That's the issue.
And are you like a standard left hand on top, proper grip?
No, I actually hurl golf the same way as I hurl. So I have my right hand on top, but I'm left sided. So I actually have the hurley grip for the left hander. Do you know what I mean? So I have the right hand on top of the golf club as well. So I actually have the proper golf.
So you play golf left handed?
Yeah. I would have turned myself inside out on the hurling field to get onto my left hand side, so I was never going to chance the right hand side.
And are you actually left-handed?
Oh God, you're going to make me out to be a right weirdo here now. So I write my right, but if I was throwing, I'd throw with my left hand. So
wow, proper ambidextrous.
It sounds good, but I don't know am I any good at either one of them. But yeah, no, I as I said, it fits in perfectly for golf.
And
absolutely love it.
Did your coach try and knock the hurling grip out of you, or did he say to you?
No. It's actually perfect. It's a golf grip for a left sider. Yeah, it's actually the perfect grip for golf. Yeah, so. If I was right-sided, I'd have it cack-handed. But yeah, absolutely spot on. So I'm wondering, was I a golfer playing hurling instead of the other way around? So,
oh man! And if you could go back to yourself as a 16-year-old, would you be like, give up that out hurling? We're going
making money.
Golf. I don't think I've ever met. I'm good buddies with John Murphy from Kinsale, and I play golf with him. I played with him one day, and I said, "You're playing golf. I don't know what the hell I'm playing." He's just the level of amateur golf even is scary. So, and I'd be country miles off that. So it's frightening what the young fellas can do nowadays with golf. So I think if I tried golf, I wouldn't have made it at that either. So I think I made a right decision.
What's your club? Your golf club?
Lee Valley. It was always Canturk, but I'm Lee Valley in Cork. So absolutely, love it up there. Great crack up there as well.
Very good. Well, we'd be happy to continue this, but we do have.
Yes. Oh yeah.
We do have to bring up the hurling. So what is the story in Cork at the moment?
So like I was saying there, I was doing something there last week, and I was saying it's very reminiscent of our 2016 year where we lost to Wexford in Thurles, and Wexford were coming now. Like Liam Dunn was over the team, and it was before Davy went in, so they were always strong, but they weren't at the top table at the time, and we felt, I suppose, that we had a chance after like winning, like 13, 14, and we were doing okay. Like with 16, everything just capitulated. Everything we tried to do went wrong, and it just felt wrong throughout the whole year. And you were trying to convince yourself that you had a chance. You always had a chance, but like looking back on it, we never did. And it just seems to be the same. Seems to be the same at the moment. Whatever, it's either the game plan just isn't working, or just the whole mood in the camp isn't good. But it just doesn't seem to be right at the moment anyway down there.
And how do you fix something like that?
Like I was saying, like trying making things exciting again, and I would change the team around a little bit. No, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? You can't change the game plan completely, but even a movement of one or two players just to make it exciting. Like on Sunday against Waterford, I would put Patrick Horgan at centre forward, just to change things up. And I know a lot of teams, I know Cork are the same. Like they're measuring off GPSs and kilometres ran and all this stuff. But I don't understand why we can't try something different. He plays centre forward for Glen Rovers, and even a little change like that and make Ty to work and think about sitting off him so much, and plus the game plan they're playing, he's not getting that much ball inside in the full forward line anyway. They seem to be working the ball out to midfield, trying to get the perfect delivery, and it's delayed in at that stage. So even a little change like that, I think might just something just needs to change. You can't change the whole thing obviously, but just a little tweak maybe just to make it a little bit more exciting again.
The level of criticism has been fierce and sustained, and I think Cork hurlers are kind of one of those premium brands that is always prone to overreaction either side. And things are going great, they're the greatest team of all time, but when things are going in any way bad, they are literally the worst team that you've ever seen. They're not trying to leg. Everything is wrong. The management is wrong, the strength and conditioning is wrong, the attitude of the players is wrong. They don't want to play for Cork. Everything is being levelled at them at the moment. Like, you've recently been associated with this group of players, you know them intimately. Is there any truth in any of that?
So it's funny, like when Cork win their first league game, you see up on Twitter, fellas booked the tickets for the Burlington the night dollar in the final. Do you know what I mean? Like, so Cork supporters, they're funny, like, they follow us to the end, like they're brilliant. And I think you actually summed it up to perfection. Like seems to be no middle ground with us. We're either terrible or brilliant. I find it very hard after coming out, and I do a bit of media work and stuff like that, and I find it very hard to kind of criticise a player because I know the effort that goes in. I can guarantee you the effort is going in training. I can guarantee you that they're going out and they're trying their level best. And just sometimes a year happens whereby, like, again, it's not that I'm assuming or pinning it on a game plan, but maybe the game plan just isn't suiting the opposition they're playing. Like, they're trying to run the ball out against Limerick and Waterford, and it's just when they bring an intensity against you, it's probably not the best way to do it. And in Tipperary on Sunday showed that when you kind of try and move the ball away from the tackle point, that's the way to beat these teams if you can, and they obviously couldn't sustain it for 70. But like the players, I'm telling you now, like, I know they're, as you said, they're probably been told that they're soft, that they don't work and all this. It's not true. It's not true. Like, they're giving 5 nights of their week up to train and play for Cork. And maybe it's just not good enough this year. I don't know. It's not all over. It's not an impossibility to go down to Waterford and win. It's probably an improbability, because when you look at it, you have to look at their last 3 games. Limerick Waterford in the league final, Limerick in the championship, and Clare in the championship. The intensity, I suppose, or the game plan didn't fit at the right time. So I don't know. I'd hope that they get a kick. And I think the Tipperary performance against Limerick, for an outside person like myself looking in, would give Cork hope of putting in that one last shift to hopefully get over the line and keep themselves in the championship. Well,
it's not an All-Ireland final because there's no medal at the end of it, but it's like a season-defining end of season.
It's more than a season-defining game. I think it's a career-defining game for a lot of people. Down in Cork, they're talking about the management being gone already. They're talking about certain players being gone already and all this stuff. Like, it is a career-defining game for me, for a lot of those players and management. Because to think about it, like being in May and being out of the championship, I know it's the way the championship has gone and it's the way the format is, but it'll be a very long year for Cork, and having to go down to Tipperary and dead rubber would be just brutal altogether.
So what happens then if they lose, if it's a career-defining game? Will there be a big turnover of players then in the off-season?
It depends. Like, the big thing is what the county board will do. Like, there was talks of the management being offered an extra year during the league campaign. Now, whether that is still there or not, I don't know. You hear, you know yourselves, as the rumours. And as you said a while ago there, the rumour mill about, Cork being brutal and players doing this, and that's ripe at the moment in Cork. And I do feel sorry. And the one thing I feel sorry about is players' families. And that's why I always find it very hard to criticise individuals, because it's not them getting hurt. Because as players, we used to read papers or listen into stuff, but their family do. So like the big thing here is what the county board decide to do. Like, are they going to extend the management for that 1 year? And if that is the case, then, you know, a lot of the players might turn over. But if a new manager comes in, it's like you're talking soccer there a while ago. Like, a new manager comes into a club, like, you don't know what he's going to do with his squad. And it's the same in hurling. So I think if they lose to Waterford, I think there's going to be a big sit down. I think they'll have to be looking at stuff with whether it's the management going or whether a change of it, or, you know, as in adding to it or whatever. Like, their 2 new coaches are just in, like Noel Furlong and Pat Mulcahy. So, you know, I suppose they'd find it very hard to not give them a second year. But again, look, it's the county board's decision to make. So, but it wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that did happen.
Like, it's interesting, like, that the questions automatically go a bit higher than the team as well, given that they've been in the under-20 finals 18, 19, and then one of the following 2 years after that there is questions about how is this young crop of players being taken to the next level in terms of fitness and strength and conditioning. Is your sense that those elements are being looked after well enough, or is there still a bit of work to be done in those areas?
So when I came out, like, I still have very good friendships with the players. So, like, when I'm doing stuff like this or I'm doing other stuff for media, I tend to stay away from the players talking about hurling like that, because I don't want them to feel like that I'm taking stories that they might be saying to me or asking me for advice, and you know what I mean. So, like, from what I gather, like, they have a very professional setup inside there. Like, Stephen Casey's the S&C coach, he's supposed to be brilliant, you know. So I'd say they are, but like, what people have to understand, right, is that, like, under 20 hurling, like years ago, under 21 hurling was, you know, you were 20 going on 21 or whatever like that. A lot of these guys could have been 18 playing, you know, under 20 hurling, just out of under 17. So that crop of players probably aren't developed yet. And a lot of them, like, are typical Cork hurlers where, you know, they're like, you know, I'm small, like, we're lovely hurlers, and we just haven't bred a few, you know, Kerrod Haggertys, I suppose, for want of a better description yet. You know, like Mark Keane coming home from Australia was obviously a huge boost that he chose hurling, and like this year he's probably bedded in. So hopefully, you know, if next year goes again, that his hurling will improve and he'll be challenging for positions and stuff like that. But you know, it's very difficult to speak from the outside of what's going on inside. But there's like, they could turn around on Sunday and have a great win, and as you said a while ago, the Cork support could be, you know, cock a hoop again and off we go again. But I think that there is something that, like, again, that reminds me so much of 16. Like, where, like, I did a bike shop opening in 2016 for my friend, and he was expecting a crowd to turn up, myself and Alan Cadigan. 4 people turned up, and 2 of them turned up to just abuse us, like, you know. So it was just so reminiscent of everything going wrong.
Wow, what was that like? Like, when you think,
yeah, terrible. Like, because, like, the year itself, like, I want, like, when you finish a career, we've done a Callan came in and spoke to us once, right? And they had lost with Munster in a game that I can't remember which campaign it was. And he said to us that how lucky we were that our season was about to start, because he'd have given his left hand to be at the start of his season again, and he had to wait a full summer to go again. And in 16, that was how I felt for 17. I wanted just to be back in the training field and right the wrongs, you know what I mean? So, like, as a player, you just can't wait to get out there again. And that winter for me was probably the worst, because the abuse we were getting, you know, questioning about, like, everyone was about to be dropped and all this stuff, like, and all Kieran did at that stage was he brought Pat Ryan in as coach. And 17 we went on to win Munster again, you know, and challenge and all in semi-final. So, like, it could be just one little thing like that could take, you know, it could change in the season currently even.
Yeah. The last thing about this that I'm just interested in is, like, how close you feel they are. And I guess this comes down to the change of style, right? Last year, they reached an All-Ireland final. The All-Ireland final was obviously a historic performance from Limerick, and you'd have to argue, like, a really bad performance from Cork as well factored into that. So it wasn't all just Limerick were amazing. It was like Cork did not perform on the day. And so I guess they went over the winter, we're going to have to do something different if we're going to overcome this. You can't do that in one season, and they're in the middle of this transition, and the transition is breaking down a little bit because players are falling back on old habits. Like, if you're going to have a future with this group, you kind of need to commit to them, and these are the hard yards that they need to wade through.
Yeah, big time. Like, I look at Kilkenny at the moment, like, and I did a thing there last week, and I was saying, like, that how many teams have we ever seen go back to a goalkeeper in Kilkenny under Brian Cody? Like, that never happened. And then, like, they got turned over a couple of times against Galway, but, like, you're doing the right thing by gaining possession. Like, the one thing about Cork is I feel that they're, with the game plan from last year, was they got the ball and they attacked at pace. Like, they were gone. There was numbers overlaps being created. And this year they're just holding onto that ball for that extra second and maybe hand passing sideways more laterally than going forward again. So I think that was the biggest change. I don't know why that has come into it, because, as you said, last year, once they got in the final, they had teams frightened with their goal creation. So, you know, I felt if they'd have kicked on with that and continued with that to create headaches, but, like, when they're kind of holding onto the ball in the defence, you're allowing opposition to first set up in their defence and second of all to attack you know, as in, like, their corner forwards tackling the corner back. So hopefully they'll go a little bit more, you know, forward earlier. I'm not a massive edge of the square driving the ball, but like get out of the defence a bit quicker and get to the delivery point around the middle of the field and go back to Cork hurling with diagonal balls into the corner, you know what I mean? And that's what the forwards would want as well. But like, you're 100% correct. If this is what they're trying to do, they have to stick with him. And as I said a second ago, like Brian Cody has obviously got Paddy Deegan sitting in the defence going backwards, Owen Murphy, who can then create the ball. Of course there's going to be mistakes, but you have to bear with it and stick with it to get the good days.
Yeah, good stuff. Anthony, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million. That was really interesting. Cheers.
Thanks,
it's Anthony Nash there, former Cork goalkeeper, joining us as part of the AirGrid timing sponsorship launch. AirGrid, Ireland's grid operator, is now in its 7th year as the official timing partner of the GAA. Will Cork stick or twist? What do you think?
I think, as you kind of put to him there, there's a big case to be made that they kind of have to stick at this point, particularly in the season. Then it's in the off-season, what happens next? Do the management get that extra year of a deal? And if there's new management in, will they take a brush to the whole thing? Like, this is a team that came back from the dead, it looked like, against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final last year and got to an All-Ireland final. They have great underage talent coming through. If you zoom out at Cork, things look good. It's just in the kind of mire of this season so far and in the championship so far specifically where things just like a complete mess.
All right. It's 10 minutes past 9 this morning. Now, All Black great and legend of the game, Dan Carter, has established the DC10 Fund. It's a dedicated fundraising platform in partnership with UNICEF Aotearoa New Zealand that will provide critical funding, support and advocacy of UNICEF's work to empower child rights in the Pacific. Since 2016, Dan has partnered with UNICEF to raise awareness of the situation for children around the world. And during a 2019 UNICEF-supported visit to a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan, he saw firsthand how important it was for children to have an education, a safe environment and hope for the future. Following his retirement from professional rugby, he wanted children just like his own to experience happy childhoods and subsequently set up the DC10 Fund to raise funds for UNICEF's work for children around the world. I'm delighted to say Dan is with us this morning. Dan, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Good morning. I couldn't have explained that better myself. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, no worries. I can only begin to imagine what it's actually like to go and see something like what you saw in Syria firsthand. And, if you have an experience like that, the important thing, I think, is to carry it with you as much as you possibly can, as opposed to putting it in a compartmentalised little box and saying, well, I've experienced that now and I have to, get back to my normal life where actually life is good. So how do you make sure that you carry that with you and it is something that you're constantly trying to fold into your activities?
Yeah, it really does put your life into perspective. I'm a firm believer of gratitude and actually working on gratitude. So every day I write 3 things that I'm really grateful for. And every now and then you find yourself complaining or moaning or unhappy, or even you see your children, complaining about something, or they want some extra time on their iPads or some really little things. And then you go into a refugee camp like I did in Jordan, where these children, these families, they had to escape from war in Syria. So they've fled their own country, and through the work that UNICEF is doing around the world, they were at a refugee camp. And so I got the opportunity to visit this place, and it blew me away. These children that were doing it tough, you wouldn't know, because they were so grateful for anything that they had. So we threw a rugby ball around and they were laughing, they were smiling. And I walked away from this visit really motivated and inspired. I thought I was going there to help put a smile on their face, but I was the one that walked away from this environment feeling motivated and inspired by these incredible children that were doing it so tough, but yet you wouldn't know, because they were just so grateful for any meal that they got. They were so grateful for any little bit of exercise or fun that they had. It blew me away. And then I returned back home, and obviously I got my own family, and it just put everything into perspective. And I was like, look, my children are really lucky to have the lives that they live. I want to be able to do more, because I realised that not every child, especially in third world countries, underprivileged children, don't have the access to simple things like clean water, to good nutrition, to education. So When I finished playing, I felt like I wanted to do more, but I couldn't because of my rugby schedule. So when I finished playing professionally last year, I was like, right, I want to use this time of transition over the next year or two to really use my platform, my profile to be able to give back. And that's the main reason that I set up the DC10 fund and partnered with UNICEF to really try and help and support these children in need.
If people want to get involved, I understand there's an auction underway at the moment. You did a kick-a-thon, which was a bit crazy, a long time spent kicking. I presume the body was very sore after that. An auction's kind of an easier thing, I suspect, for you to be involved in.
Yes, yeah, you're right. So currently I've got a pair of limited edition rugby boots that I designed with Adidas, and they were going to be my retirement boots. I was going to play my last game of professional rugby in these boots, but with the pandemic that was just over 2 years ago now, I ended up having to return back to New Zealand. I never actually played my last game professionally with these boots. So I designed a pair, Adidas raffled a few pairs off, so you've never actually been able to buy a pair of these boots. But I wanted to bring my two passions together. One passion giving back to children in need that I've just talked about, and the other passion of kicking. I've always been able to kick goals, and it's something I love. Even now I've finished being a professional rugby player, I love taking my bag of rugby balls down to the park and kicking goals. So I wanted to bring my two passions together for a fundraising event. So I went down to Eden Park and I kicked goals for 24 hours straight, no sleep. And I managed to survive the 24 hours. I raised some incredible money to help provide clean water for children in the Pacific Islands. And I managed to kick 1,598 kicks in that 24 hours, which is how many test points I scored for the All Blacks. So it was a real milestone. It was tough. It was just what I needed, having retired, to put my mind and body to the limits again, which is something I used to do when I was playing professionally. Every weekend you'd go to those lengths, but it was a great experience. And we raised some fantastic money, and we're closing the event in terms of a fundraising event next week. And I thought I'd do one last donation. So I put a pair of my rugby boots, these limited edition rugby boots that I wore for the entire 24 hours. I wore one pair of these limited edition boots for 24 hours. So they probably smell a little bit. They're a little bit dirty. They've had plenty of wear and tear throughout that 24 hours, but I'm auctioning them off on eBay, and 100% of that, the donation, whoever the lucky person is to bid the most for these boots, that one will go towards helping provide fresh water for these children in the Pacific Islands.
And in a true tribute to your career, did you kick the last one with your right boot?
Yeah, I know. So the World Cup final in 2015, I had a little bet with a couple of teammates of mine, because I'd never actually kicked a goal in a test match with my wrong foot. And my father used to always tell me to kick off both feet. So I grew up kicking off my left and right foot. And then, we had an opportunity in the World Cup final in 2015. So the last kick of my All Black career was off my wrong foot. So I slotted that. But then through this kick-a-thon event, I realised actually I need to kick off both feet. There's no way I can last 24 hours kicking over 1,500 kicks just off my left foot. So I mixed it up and kicked off both feet.
You're obviously you love kicking. If you're still doing this, it's not something that you've had enough of. It's not something that you're sickened by. It actually still excites you to have the challenge to be able to kick.
Yeah, it's people are asking, why, why are you down at the park kicking so often? But for me, it's my happy place. It's like meditation to me. So in the busy world that I'm living post footy, I just feel like to clear my head, I go put in my headphones and listen to music and kick goals. It's something I love doing, and I think for as long as I'm able to kick and the body holds up and stays in one piece, I'll kick for as long as I possibly can. But to do an event like the Kick-a-thon, just gave it that little bit more meaning, where I was actually kicking for something much bigger than myself, to be able to support these children in need in the Pacific Islands. It gave a real sense of meaning, and something that I really missed since playing rugby. So I love kicking. It'll always be a big part of my life.
That bit that you said at the start, where you talked about writing down 3 things every day that you're grateful for. What age were you when you started doing that? When did you realise that this was something that would be a good thing for your own mental health and for just your own sense of who you are in the world?
I was in my 20s and I got a paid tribute. It wasn't something that I came up with. It was a coach, Wayne Smith, who coached the All Blacks for a number of years and even coached me at the Kobe Steelers in Japan, where the team that I finished playing for at the end of my career. He was really big on this, and he used to make the team just really spend a little bit of time of their day where they just were grateful for something, and you actually had to write it down. And there's just something a lot more, for me personally, meaningful when I actually get a pen and paper and write it down. It means that I'm accountable. It has a lot of meaning. So it was a real value for us in the All Blacks, is actually showing gratitude and showing humility. We used to get free clothes, car, we used to get all these things as a rugby player. And it's quite easy to get ahead of yourself and think that you're better than you are. So you need to actually work and spend time on focusing on things you're grateful for and thankful for, and make sure that you remain grounded and keep your feet on the ground, because that's a huge part of success and a huge part of the culture here in New Zealand. So it's been a big part of my All Black career, is focusing on that. Even now that I've finished playing, I like to spend time focusing on things that I'm thankful for in my life.
That's really interesting, because you come into the team as a very famous, talent that everybody has massive expectations for, and eventually your team delivers on those expectations. But it's not as straightforward. Everything is easy from day one. International rugby is easy. The World Cups are easy. It's the opposite of that. There's heartbreak, and there's despair, and there's recrimination, and you had a first hand, a view of the best and worst of New Zealand rugby culture. Where's in your mind, when you look back on it, where's the hinge point that things turn for the better and you begin to have those values and you begin to live those values?
It's something that's ingrained in you as soon as you are part of the All Black environment. And it's not the coaches or management that are teaching you the values of what it takes to be an All Black or live in the All Black environment. It's the senior players. And we used to have some incredible senior players in the group, the likes of Kevin Mealamu, Brad Thorne, and they used to spend a lot of time with the new guys coming into the environment, and just getting them up to speed of the All Black way and the values that we live. And we spend a lot of time of looking back at the history of the All Blacks, but then making them realise that they're just custodians of the jersey. It's now their job and their role to add to this legacy. So all of a sudden they walk away really motivated, inspired to realise that their mission, their purpose is to actually leave the jersey in a better place than what it was before they arrived. And when you have a belief and values like that, everyone's going to give it 100% every single day of the year. So that's a really big value that we rely on the guys when they come into the environment. And then there's a whole lot of things like work ethic is another big one. Walking towards pressure. Obviously pressure is a big part of high performance and playing under pressure, and actually walking towards that pressure rather than letting it be a burden is another one that we really spend a lot of time on working on as well. So I think, now that I've finished, I look back at my time in the All Black environment and just, really, really lucky to learn a lot of incredible insights into things that you can carry on even life after rugby.
There's a narrative out there that this happens in the aftermath of the defeat in the World Cup, but it sounds to me like you guys were doing it all the time, and that sometimes you don't always win, and that's the vagaries of sport, that it wasn't as simple as we fixed everything because we lost one World Cup.
No, it was accumulation of a lot of things, but we probably didn't learn enough. Like, I was there in 2003 where we lost the World Cup semi-final, and through that time we didn't probably spend enough time learning from the unsuccessful World Cups that had gone before us. And we went into 2007 thinking that we had enough and what it took to win that World Cup. We didn't. We got knocked out by France in the quarter-final, and we're the worst performing All Black side in the history of World Cup history, going into that World Cup as the number one side for 3 or 4 years straight. So it was a huge insight for us. But something we learned a lot earlier was about culture and building a really diverse culture where everyone could contribute, everyone felt welcomed, everyone could be themselves. And we've been working on that for a number of years. And then we went to 2007 and we thought that was enough, but that was just a little cog in the wheel. What we didn't realize is actually the importance of your mental strength and working on your mental game, because we were spending a number of hours in the gym, we were spending a number of hours on the training field, but we weren't spending enough time working on our mental strength, how to deal with pressure, how to deal with setbacks, how to deal with communication when the opposition are absolutely on fire. So we took some great learnings from 2007 and we were able to apply that, and along with the work that we're doing in terms of building a unique culture in the group, I think that was a huge reason why the All Blacks were so successful for a good 10 years or so after that World Cup.
Is there also something about the style of play in that there's an innate sense of adventure, and we want to keep the ball and we want to make sure that our skills are better than everybody else, that maybe the rest of the world, we've obviously all read the book Legacy and kind of got as much insight as we possibly can from that side of things. It does strike me too that you all really enjoy the most exciting part of the game, which is being creative, and that's something you can teach it and you can get better at it. So I definitely believe you can teach anything and get better at anything, but that innate sense of we want to try something that other people haven't tried. We are the guardians of the spirit of the game.
Yeah, all the coaches that we've ever had in New Zealand really encouraged the individuals to express themselves. There's a reason that you're picked at the highest level, is because you have the skill set, you have the drive to continue to not just follow trends, but to be world leading. So we were innovative, trying new things. But one thing that we spent a lot more time on than a lot of people realize is actually the core skills. So as an All Black, we used to go to club rugby training or kids training, and we used to get back out into the community and do a lot of coaching. And you have these little junior clubs going, okay, well, the coach would go, hey, can you take these kids and do some of your All Black drills that you guys do? So we'd take them through some All Black drills, and it was just really simple, basic catch, pass, running straight. And they're like, no, seriously, like, give us some of these special drills that you guys do as the All Blacks. I was like, well, this is it. Like, we focus so much on the core skills. So when we score these silky beautiful tries, if you actually break it down, it is just doing the fundamentals of the game better than the opposition. And we used to really pride ourselves on doing the basics over and over and over again, because if you did that, then you're able to play freely, express yourself, and play this beautiful style of play. Whereas I see a lot of teams, they want to play this flamboyant, open style of play, but they're not doing the basics well enough. The passes are not, right on the chest. The catching, the arms are not extended to catch the ball early. They're catching the ball late on their chest. So just little things like that that we would spend hours and hours at training working on.
So that's very much an All Blacks culture and the culture of your career in New Zealand. Like, what about post All Blacks? Was there a different culture that you endured or enjoyed maybe in France, and I guess even in Perpignan, right in the middle of that time with the All Blacks?
Yeah, so when I look back now, and I was lucky enough to have a long playing career here in New Zealand, and then some opportunities to play in France, and then finished my career in Japan. So 3 completely different cultures, and the learnings that I got from those 3 cultures was incredible. One thing that I learned is you can't take what you do in one environment and culture and just replicate that in France, for example. And I knew that in 2009 when I went to Perpignan. It was my first experience. It was only 6 months in France, but I soon learned that the French, they do things differently. And so when I went to race in 92, I didn't want to go there and say, hey, look, at the All Blacks, we do this and that. We should try and change to play more like what they do. I knew that just wasn't going to work in the French culture and the way they did things. So I spent the first 3 months not really saying anything, to be honest. I sat back and I just learned the way that they went about their work and their delivery and their style of play. And then over time, I was able to just implement little things. And I was really fortunate enough to have a good Irishman, Ronan O'Gara, the coaching group there. So I used to spend a lot of time in his office, just talking rugby, talking about things we did in New Zealand, not trying to change the way we played, just trying to give little ideas and just a new insight into things that we could try at racing, and try and just evolve our game in a little way. But if you try and throw too much on them, it just it backfires. And I've seen a lot of Kiwi guys that they go into French environments and they just get so frustrated because things are done differently. You got to accept that things are going to be done differently, and it's just the way it is. But over time, you can slowly just implement little things that can often make a big change.
And I think some of the coaches probably have the same view as well, where they go into a French environment and sometimes get taken aback a little bit by some of the things that they see. Maybe that time is over, but certainly maybe 10, 15 years ago that was the case. So was Ronan O'Gara very inquisitive? Was he constantly asking you questions in terms of bits that he could take from the All Blacks culture and implement within the Racing changing rooms?
Yeah, he was a young coach, and he was willing to learn. And that's what I love so much about Rog, his willingness to learn, take in information, his passion for the game blew me away. So much so that when he got the opportunity to coach down here in New Zealand, he took it. And I'm sure he could earn a lot more money, coaching in France, but he wanted to learn so much that he, took the job opportunity at the Crusaders, had a couple of very successful seasons there, and learned off, some of the best coaches in the world and the coaching staff that they had at the Crusaders. And then his time was to move on to bigger and better things. And now I think that's a big part of the reason why La Rochelle are having so much success recently is a lot of the learnings that Rog has taken from his time in New Zealand, and he will bring his own spin on things. And so I really enjoyed my time working alongside Rog.
The story goes you were involved in recommending him for the gig in New Zealand, is that right?
Yeah. I obviously used to play with Scott Robinson, so when he was looking for a backs coach, he asked about Rog, and I could only say good things, having worked alongside Ronan for a couple of years, and his willingness to learn. I still realised at that time he was a young coach, but his passion for the game, his willingness to learn. So he had a huge growth mindset, which I loved. He never thought that he had all the answers. He was willing to listen and learn and also debate, which is very important as well. So I knew it would be a perfect fit for both the Crusaders and Ronan, and it was hugely successful. And I'm sure that, he's a much better coach because of his time down here in New Zealand.
Was there ever any part of you that was thinking, I mean, you have a growth mindset, you're still obsessed with the game, you still love it, you still love being around the environment, that coaching is in your future?
I don't know. Like, I do. I love the game, and I love watching the game. I'm hugely passionate about rugby. I feel like I have a lot of knowledge and experience to share, but I've given so much to the game as a player, and now I feel like I just need to use my energy and time on my family. I've got a young family of 4 children, 4 boys, all under 9 years old, and I love my weekends with my kids.
Yeah.
I'm testing my patience, helping coach their soccer teams and rugby teams, and playing Uber driver to their kids' sports on the weekends. I just love that, and I felt like my last couple of seasons when I was in Japan, they were based in New Zealand, so I missed a lot of their childhood. So they're so young. My youngest is 11 months and my eldest just turned 9. So they're at really good ages where they need to have mum and dad around. So if I get into coaching, it's full on. Like, I've seen how hard the top coaches work, and to then be away for the weekends as well. It's just for me, the timing wasn't quite right to get into coaching. You never say never. Who knows what the future holds? But in this point of time, coaching doesn't really interest me.
So a bit of broadcasting might be the future, is it?
No, broadcasting is just as bad. You're away for the weekend again. I find in other ways there's plenty of other projects that I'm working on. A lot of ambassador work as well. Taking some time out, from the game as a repurpose and focus on how I can make the biggest impact over the next 10, 20 years. In the second chapter of my life.
Well, that's fair enough. One last question for you then. How many tests will Ireland win in New Zealand this summer?
I love that. This is huge, honestly. As a proud Kiwi, and the way the Irish played against us in November, completely outplayed us, has brought so much excitement around these 3 test matches in New Zealand. As you know, us Kiwis, we're pretty passionate about rugby. It's like a religion down here in New Zealand. So to be completely outplayed like we were in November brings some real excitement to the series. 3 test matches. The All Blacks, we really need to know exactly where we're at, and this series against an in-form Irish side. And I followed them pretty closely through the Six Nations, and I thought they played extremely well. Great to see Johnny Sexton getting consistent game time and playing well and driving the team around the park. So I'm hugely excited. I've given you the real long answer. I can't say. I have to support my Kiwi brothers whenever they play, but these are just the test matches that the All Blacks need just over a year from the World Cup to just see exactly where we're at, whether we've got the combinations right, how much change we need to make over the next 18 months, and I'm sure the Irish are pretty keen to build on the momentum that they started or that they've been building over the last few years against the All Blacks.
Ordinarily, Dan, the answer would have been, we'll win all 3 of them back in the day, but at least there's a bit of doubt in your mind that I can sense here that it's not a guaranteed nailed-on whitewash.
Oh, mate, it never was against Ireland. Yeah, we obviously had a great record against the Irish, but and amongst that time there were many great escapes against the Irish, and one springs to mind down in Christchurch where I wobbled a dead duck drop goal over.
We remember.
Against the Irish. Yeah, you guys probably should have beaten us that night, but we never sort of had these dominant performances. We had a couple of lucky escapes, so it was always a huge test match against the Irish. So I'm never super confident when coming up against the Irish, and you had some great success over us in recent years. But if I had to not a betting man, but if I was, I can't bet against the All Blacks 3-0.
Right, okay. Well, look, just a reminder, Dan Carter's gold Adidas Predator boots are for sale for a great cause. That auction is live on eBay. We're going to share that link, and it's also posted on Dan's Twitter feed as well, if you want to own a slice of rugby history and to help a great cause. You've been great with your time, Dan. We wish you the very best. 400 grand raised already for the Kick-a-thon. And as you said, that's there's still another week to go for that. So we hope that you hit the 500,000, and I've no doubt you probably will. Thanks a million, Dan. Congratulations on the fundraiser and surviving the 24 hours and the rest of your career as well, which is also pretty good.
I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for your support. I miss my trips to Ireland, but obviously might be able to hopefully pop over there sometime soon. So thanks again.
Cheers. That's Dan Carter, rugby legend, joining us this morning for a very good cause. It is for UNICEF Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's 9:39 here on OTB AM. If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, and we're brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We'll play you out with some top quality highlights from last night's show next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The team of OTB are taking on a challenge that requires fitness, a challenge that demands months of training and preparation, a challenge that requires knowing when to push and when to focus on recovery. Triathlons aren't easy, but having a fitness coach helps.
Whoop are helping us non-athletes.
You'll need all the help you can get.
Yeah, as I was saying, helping us non-athletes feel like pros in our challenge to complete a triathlon this summer.
OTB Sports, in partnership with Whoop. Unlock your inner potential with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that provides you with actionable feedback on your sleep, training, recovery and health. Check out whoop.com for more.
Paddy, I go, what? It was Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James' house. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GEA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Now then, you're welcome along. So we have much to discuss. Marseille beckons in the Heineken Champions Cup. We will have our final lineup this time next week. Semi-finals next weekend. Saturday coming, Leinster host Toulouse at the Aviva Stadium. 3 o'clock kick-off. Tickets on sale as of this morning. Sunday then, Racing will have home advantage against La Rochelle, although the La Défense Arena not available, so it won't be there. That's also 3 o'clock kick-off time on Sunday, Irish time. Second year in a row, it is Leinster and 3 French sides making up the final 4. Liam Toland is on the line. Hi, Liam.
How you doing, Joe?
And Jerry Thornley of the Irish Times. Hey, Jerry.
Good to speak to you, Joe, and you, Liam.
So Munster 24, Toulouse 24 in front of just over 40,000 fans. Amazing atmosphere at the Aviva Stadium. Let's work our way backwards for a moment, Liam. We had Anton Dupont and Conor Murray through the middle. We had Ben Healy and Thomas Ramos on the right-hand side, the trickier side. We had Joey Carberry and Roman Intimac on the left. Moments of high tension and also good humour, not least when Intimac thought he had won the entire shootout, only to realise, we go back for the further kick away either way. And he had to turn around and somewhat apologise to Joey Carberry for the premature celebrations. The Toulouse kicks, to give them credit, because people say penalties are a lottery, there was also a lot of quality in those Toulouse kicks.
Yeah, I think for me the big talking point is that Healy took the kicks on the right and Carberry took the kicks on the left. Now, I thought, regardless of statistics, and I don't know who made the decision, who slots in where, and the obvious Carberry and Healy are both goal kickers. It was interesting that Ramos, who is the official Toulouse goal kicker, took the hardest ones, and Healy, whether he volunteered or was nominated, ended up in it. But I'm pretty sure if Ronan O'Gara was on the pitch, he wouldn't have asked permission. He would have gone and taken the most difficult side. And I was a bit unsure why Carberry, who is the Irish international, and Healy is the player who's coming up, a younger player, statistically may have a slightly stronger goal kicking. And obviously, Carberry missed a couple in real time. But I was surprised that Carberry didn't step up or wasn't allowed to step up or to demand that to take those kicks. And there was an awful lot of weight on a young pair of shoulders. And I was surprised it wasn't Carberry taking those kicks, to be honest.
Did that occur to you, Jerry?
No, it hadn't, but now that Lee mentions it's a fair point. Yep, I hadn't thought of that at all. But yes, Ronan O'Gara most possibly would have done that. It is the more difficult side, so maybe you give your first choice goal kicker, as Toulouse did, the more difficult angle from the right, and their second choice kicker, the relatively easier angle from the left, being both right footers. So yeah, it's a valid point.
Did that same thought occur to you, Liam, as it was Ben Healy taking on the drop goals? And I appreciate, he's had some big drop goals for Munster already, so maybe he's just the better drop goal kicker. But that point about the Irish international and the experience being on hand and not utilised.
Well, at these moments, at quarter-final level, which is an unusual journey we're on this season, I just think you want your best players stepping up and demanding to take ownership of it. And I was thinking of either Sexton or O'Gara. Those two guys would say, listen, I don't know what you do, but I'm the guy who drops the goal, or I'm the guy who hurts from the touchline. So I was just a little bit surprised in that sense. But in real time, when the game is evolving, obviously Ben Healy had his opportunity on the drop goal. He's a young player. He's got a future ahead of him. We know, he's kicked some outrageous goals for Munster, and we've seen it in Thomond Park and around Europe. We know also that Ronan O'Gara struggled in the Heineken Cup final against Northampton, so it is not unusual to happen. But when you have your kind of de facto starting Irish out half in the ranks, I was surprised that he wasn't demanding that opportunity to do it. And I think, again, statistics become irrelevant when it comes to the penalty shootout, because it's an enormously different one. Who has been in that environment? Almost no player in the history of the game has had to go through that. But what's different on the pitch is that normally in a pitch, when a try is scored and you convert from the touchline, or even the position that Ben Healy had, he might have been winded 20 seconds earlier. He's in the ebb and flow of the game. It's an entirely different way of kicking when everyone's chatting, everyone's talking, you step up, your tempo is totally different. And that's where your experience comes in. Now, the point, of course, is that these players don't have that experience, but you want your most experienced guys. You want your Michael Jordan to say, look, you can throw it to whoever else, but I'm the guy taking the throw. I'm the guy taking the kick.
I suppose, Jerry, and maybe this has been a touch too critical, but the thought occurred to me as well about Carberry, both in terms of the shootout and which side he was kicking from, and also to an extent during real time when Healy took on both drop kicks. And I kind of thought, maybe they've chatted about all this beforehand, maybe not, but in O'Gara and in Sexton, we had a certain personality type, and Carberry, no right, no wrong, but he is a different personality type. He doesn't seem to get his elbows nice and sharpened and budge his way in there and say, Healy, step aside. Not in his makeup, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, perhaps not. Although, Ben Healy has a proven reputation from the moment he broke into the Munster team for landing clutch kicks, be they long-range penalties or drop goals, and he's got the bigger boot. There's no doubt about it. So, when he went for that penalty from inside his own half in the last minute of regulation time, you can understand why he went for that one as well. He is the out half. He's in that position. The thought occurred to me, Joe, I know Liam agrees with me, is that when they went for the drop goal in extra time, I just wonder if Peter O'Mahony had still been on the pitch, if Conor Murray had still been on the pitch, if Joey Carberry stood at half. That's your intelligentsia, your 6, 9 and 10 that started the game. They're your leaders on the pitch. Might they have gone 1, 2, 3 more phases and tried to get closer to the post? If you remember when O'Gara landed the drop goal to beat Northampton many years later of 40 plus phases in Thomond Park. Yeah. They showed an incredible patience then, Munster. And I just wonder, had they a bit more experience on the pitch then at 6, 9 and 10, might they have shown a bit more patience and gone to the post a couple of phases later, closer in?
Alan Quinlan made that very point this morning. He felt they took it a bit early as well. Yeah. Ironically, Jerry, Healy struck the more difficult kick from further away, much better than the one which was closer. I wonder, was he maybe a yard or two too far forward? Could have been a touch deeper, because he seemed to rush that initial, the closer kick.
Yeah, perhaps so as well. Yes, again, that's possibly true. It's funny, isn't it? O'Gara, apart from that Northampton final and Twickenham, when you learn from your mistakes, you learn from the bad days, and they make you better in future days. And if you think about it, O'Gara's reputation so much is built on clutch kicks, Grand Slam in Cardiff, that Northampton kick, so many over his career. And I think he landed one a week after Northampton, didn't he? In the last kick of the game in Castor in overtime as well to win that match. And some of his teammates made a joke when the plane was landing, let Rog land, he can land anything. That JJ Hanman missed that chance to beat Racing in the home game in Thomond Park, which was a draw 2 or 3 seasons ago. When he played brilliantly and floated that pass and nailed a right-hand touchline conversion. And just feel for them, because if JJ had nailed that kick, and certainly if Ben Healy had nailed the drop goal at the weekend, they'd be heroes, wouldn't they, both times?
It's what pressure does, I suppose. That's the enthralling aspect of sport. Yeah, fine margins. I suppose, Liam, it's to Munster's credit in many respects that they were within striking distance against a side as good as Toulouse. The overall game then, up until extra time, 24 points apiece. What about the Munster performance allowed them to be in this position?
Well, in the first instance, Joe, I haven't enjoyed a weekend of rugby as much as I have this weekend. It was phenomenal, like the tries across the board. And I think Munster did. We've talked about a news talk in the last few weeks, the importance of rewarding your supporters. And I think the Munster performance in the first instance rewarded everybody who went a lot of trouble to be at that. And it was the first fixture maybe in a while that they did so. You can see quite a change in the game plan that Munster are employing. They clearly recognise that they were playing against monsters. So they looked really good when they upped the pace and kept the pace moving. The challenge they had at times was that it put pressure on their own skills and their own subtle decision making at times, when they could have really eked out a couple of extra scores, two very subtle 2v1s and that. But there was a variety in the kicking game. Obviously, Conor Murray's box kicking, and we know how good that is. At Outhampton, Carberry was kicking, but he was doing a kind of a cross-field box kick. They were chopping and changing their routine. De Allende was carrying with some ferociousness, and their defensive line was ridiculous. It was phenomenal, to the point that you'd argue that Toulouse were very, very wasteful of their opportunities. The scrum is going to be its own little kind of ecosystem to discuss. And when Munster started, obviously Munster-Toulouse, 16 players starting the pack. And at one time, Toulouse looked really, really strong. And then you started chopping and changing personnel, Ryan for Archer, etc. And it made subtle differences. Ahern came on and that sort of stuff. So it's very, very difficult to know. And at one point then, Munster started in the ascendancy. So the scrum certainly is a talking point that needs obviously corrective action. You look at the starting side is down R.G. Snyman, is down Tyke Byrne, is down Kilcoyne, and you kind of go, wow, those guys would make a difference as well. But there was an attempt to play the ball at pace from inside their own half. And had they been a bit more patient with that process, and they drilled a lot of balls along the deck, not even 50-50s, they kind of gave the momentum back to Toulouse. I think they let Toulouse off, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 times when they were building a little bit more patience, and I think they might have got better reward. But there was certainly an awful lot of really good stuff in what we saw that will bring that crowd back again and bring me back again to watch them.
Well, that's good, because I felt you were very disillusioned with the whole thing a few weeks ago and felt their style of play was, I think, in the dark ages was the phrase you used, and you were almost despondent. In a perverse way, Jerry, sometimes, I mean, this is the inverse of other seasons where we've watched Munster play better rugby, and then in the big games they've almost reverted to type and gone to one-out runners and been beaten. They seem to have spent a season being criticised for their style of rugby, and then on the big day against Toulouse they went for it a bit more. Maybe if they were a bit more practiced at that style of rugby and less risk averse for a lot of the season, they might have taken those more subtle opportunities Liam mentioned.
Yeah, maybe. I think Munster played some good rugby this season at times, not consistently. Like, you think of the Scarlets' performance away. You think of a couple of their European performances, most notably Wasps away. You think of the Exeter at home performance, the first half up in Ulster. I thought they came into this game on a very good run of momentum and playing good rugby, and there was good shape in their attack. I thought the other thing they did very well in their terms of their game plan against Toulouse was, yes, they were playing against bigger men and they varied their kicking, but they kept the ball on the pitch for as much as they possibly could to really try and run. That's what they had to do. They had to run this juggernaut around the pitch as much as they could, keep the ball in play. And I thought, they had some joy out of that. And they were a little bit unlucky in many respects. I think when you look back on over the course of the game, they scored 3 tries apiece. The scrum was huge. So that the 2 scrum penalties, which led to Toulouse's first incision, and then a scrum advantage for their first try. They did iron out some of those issues, definitely, particularly when Arnold was sin-binned. I thought he might well have been red carded. You know, another referee might well have red carded him because it was a late tackle on Simon Zebo, which none of the four officials mentioned, the fact that it was late. And he also lifted him above the horizontal. And, you know, it's a fraction, his back hits the ground, a fraction of a second before Zebo's head bangs into the ground. And then he follows through with the shoulder as well. I thought he was very lucky to stay in the pitch. And that could have seen, of course, Toulouse down to 14 men.
OTB
and then you look at the chances that they missed
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating guard.
Early in the second half. Toulouse are
OTB SPORTS
in many, many respects. I remember all the way back in 2000 in Bordeaux, I think it was, that when they applauded Munster off the pitch, took their defeat magnificently in the semi-final. And they just, you know, they're a class club in many respects, but Medar is being helped off heavily limping with his left thigh heavily bandaged, and he's limping off the pitch, but he happens to be going for an HIA, which allows Fusak back onto the pitch, which means Toulouse can see out the last 8 minutes of normal time and extra time with 15 players, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to. So I think Munster will feel a bit aggrieved. That clear out on Peter O'Mahony that led to him being departed. I don't think that was the cause of the injury, but clearly Romain Entimac comes into the side and it's not penalised. And that leads to the line-out from which Toulouse scored their third try, equalising try. And most of all, of course, losing Peter O'Mahony with 62 minutes up at the clock, and they're leading by 10 points. And he was playing so well as he played against Exeter in the first match. He's been inspirational for them, and that was a big loss in terms of his presence on the pitch and leadership as well, wasn't it? So they were a little bit unlucky, Munster. Like, you know, the old lament about them going a decade without a trophy will carry on now, and you know they're so close but not quite good enough to beat the best. Are they not? Well, like, Toulouse are the reigning champions. They won it last year, and they had to beat Munster 40-33 when Munster were disadvantaged by not having the game in front of a crowd at Thomond Park. This time the crowd seems to have been absolutely outstanding. A bit like Welford Road, it was 5,000 short of capacity, which shows you don't have to have a full house for it to be an electric atmosphere. The singing and the chanting and the colour. And it was just it looked a brilliant day in the Aviva. But you still have to wonder a little bit if it was played in a 27,000 capacity Thomond Park with the crowd are just that bit close to the pitch, where it's just that bit more of a cauldron, might have made a slight bit of difference. There's a lot of laments for Munster in this one. It's going to be a really tough defeat for them to take, and it'll be a hard watch them next week, and I would say it'll almost be an impossible watch, and they probably need a break now, definitely, for a week.
Yeah, Liam, to Jerry's point, do you come away from Saturday thinking, oh, maybe Munster are a bit closer to the top table than we might have thought?
Well, I suppose one of the reasons you kind of quoted me there accurately a couple of minutes ago, and one of the reasons I was pretty dejected is because it was a sunny Saturday evening when they entertained Leinster a few weeks back. COVID was gone, and there was this opportunity to set a real marker, and I felt they didn't set down that marker, and their game plan wasn't quite asking enough questions, and there wasn't a ferociousness about how they approached the game. We saw huge elements of that against Toulouse, but you can't just turn the tap on and off. And I think if you look at the four sides have gone through to the semi-final, they're the best four sides. If you look at the quarterfinals, I think there's elements of what Munster were doing was really, really, really impressive. Now they have to add a couple of layers onto that, and all of a sudden, if they can unshackle themselves of the phase play that they had been playing and a heavy realisation on the box kicking. There's lots of talent in that team. It seems that it has been shackled for season after season after season between the various different coaches. And the rewards that rugby teams are getting when they do entertain that style of game. And I think that style of game will suit the likes of Carberry. You get to see maybe the better side of him as opposed to the fixed side that we saw in the kicking aspects of the lot. I think there's huge amount and the structure, the management has changed, and you can see that's a different game that they're played at the weekend than I've seen over the course of the last season or so. It was ferocious, yes. It had all the elements of a great Munster ferocity, but there was elements of a game plan that's bridging the gap to the modern teams, and I think there's a lot to be very hopeful for.
Well, there's no doubt when you look at the four semi-finalists, it's fairly obvious what style of rugby is to the fore in Europe right now and across the game right now. I mean, Jerry, we'll never know really, but you'd love to be on the inside of the camp now and get a feel for whether or not this new, more expansive style, is this the Graham Rowntree style and his voice is carrying that bit more weight now and we're going to go this way, or if it's just been a natural move Munster would have made either way. We don't know. I don't expect you to know, but it's a question I have to say.
Well, I don't know. Like, you're right, can't possibly know, but I would have thought it was more the latter than the former.
Okay.
I think too much credence has been given to the fact that Graham Roundtree's confirmation as the next head coach has had this galvanising effect on the squad. I think the one thing I've learned from all the Zoom calls with all the Munster players this season, or the Munster coaches, is how tight-knit they are. Maybe it's because of all the outside noise and the critical outside noise. Maybe it's because of the South African trip and being divided into three and the way they responded against Wasps. Maybe most of all, perhaps it's the reaction to defeat against Connacht in the new year, but they seem incredibly tight and together, and they were on this journey and this path towards playing this kind of rugby anyway. I personally think, but I don't know. You'd imagine this is what Stephen Larkin would have wanted as well. And it's such a shame for them that they're not going to sign off by going a little bit further in Europe. Imagine a semi-final against Leinster. That truly, and to go. I don't think there's any shame in the way they went out on Saturday at all. Like, for only the second team in the history of the competition to go out in a penalty shootout. I mean, it's better than a toss of coin, but it's still unsatisfactory. It's better than having different players doing all the kicks. So I think it was Martin Williams missed for Cardiff the last time it happened, a flanker. He should never have been put in that position. At least we were putting 3 goal kickers per se in that position last Saturday. So I think that was a better penalty shootout system, but still no shame in the defeat. And yeah, it'll be interesting how they rally now, because, you know, they've got a big game against Leinster on Saturday week. They've got a chance of getting a home quarter-final, potentially even a home semi-final, and getting all the way to the URC final. And like I said, they'll need this week to regroup, definitely. They couldn't have gone out. You think about Ulster. That we in Irish rugby, we've got a huge love affair with the Heineken Champions Cup, much more so than the basic league competition, which is the URC, and previously been the Pro 14, the Pro 12.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete.